Chapter 121. In the bloody arena, Luo Qingtong exits the VIP room and leaves with Su Yu, who is waiting for her outside the door. Just as the two of them reach the entrance, a black shadow suddenly pounces over from the side. "Lord Demonic Doctor, be careful, Master." Su Yu suddenly raises her eyes and blocks in front of Luo Qingtong. She raises her hand and slashes at the pouncing figure. "Wait." Luo Qingtong finds the voice a bit familiar and calls out to stop her. Soon after, the figure pounces in front of her. "Lord Demonic Doctor, please save my mother. I beg you." The figure is tall and sturdy. At this moment, he is kneeling in front of her. The big guy is curled up like a shrimp and desperately kowtows to her. Luo Qingtong looks at him and frowns. "Chu Lingfeng?" Luo Qingtong recognizes the other party. Isn't this the blockhead that she saved in order to make a name for herself in the bloody arena? Save his mother? Isn't his mother dead? Asking her to save a dead person? If she didn't know that this Chu Lingfeng is a little silly, Luo Qingtong would have thought that the other party is here to ruin her reputation. "I can't save the dead. You can go." Luo Qingtong takes Su Yu and prepares to go around Chu Lingfeng. She is a demonic doctor, not an immortal. What's more, even an immortal can't save a person who has been dead for several days. This Chu Lingfeng really knows how to find trouble for himself. When Luo Qingtong entered the bloody arena, she saw this blockhead kneeling on the side and falling asleep. She doesn't know how long he has been kneeling with his body covered in dust. She didn't expect that he was waiting for her. However, the dead can't be saved. It's useless even if he kneels to death here. "No, Lord Demonic Doctor, my mother is not dead. She is still alive. They are all talking nonsense. My mother is still sitting beside me and smiling at me. She's not dead." Seeing that Luo Qingtong was about to leave, Chu Lingfeng took a few steps forward on his knees and hugged her leg. He said incoherently, "Lord Evil Doctor, I know you are a good person. I was about to die in the arena, and you saved me. The people in the arena treated me very well and gave me a lot of good things. I know it's all because of you. Can you save my mother? She was really dying. Her figure is already very, very faint. Lord Evil Doctor, if you save my mother, I'll sell myself to you. I'm very powerful. I don't need to eat so much, but I could do a lot of work. Otherwise, if you sell me to the fighting arena, I'll definitely be very, very serious. I'm not afraid of pain. You can break a few of my bones, and I'll fight you no matter how heavy the injuries are. I can make you a lot of money, as long as you save my mom. Lord Evil Doctor, I beg you. I beg you. You have to save her." Such a big guy was hugging Luo Qingtong's thigh and crying like a child. He looked silly and pitiful, like a big dog that had been abandoned by its owner. Su Yu couldn't bear to see him like this. She also knew a little about Luo Qingtong's fame. She knew that this big fool was about to be beaten to death at that time, and it was her master who saved him. So he was seriously injured in the arena to fight for others and earn money to treat her mother's illness? Although he was a fool, he was also a filial son. "Master!" Su Yu looked at Luo Qingtong. Although the dead couldn't be saved, it wasn't a big deal for her master to take a look. "All right, go take a look." Luo Qingtong wasn't moved by Su Yu's words, but Chu Lingfeng's words made her a little interested. She wasn't dead. Her figure was becoming more and more transparent. This situation. Chapter 122. Master, this is the place. After receiving Luo Qingtong's approval, Chu Lingfeng was overjoyed. He automatically followed Su Yu and called her master. No matter how she corrected him, he wouldn't listen. In his opinion, since Luo Qingtong agreed to save his mother, he was her person. Luo Qingtong's lips twitched when she heard this. Why do these words sound so ambiguous? However, although this blockhead was a bit stupid, he was loyal and pure. Luo Qingtong didn't mind keeping him by her side. Moreover, this blockhead wasn't completely useless. Luo Qingtong discovered that Chu Lingfeng's recovery ability was very amazing. She had just pulled him back from the brink of death a few days ago. It had only been a few days, but he was already alive and kicking. The huge wound on his abdomen had healed without leaving a scar. Luo Qingtong had never seen anyone with such a strong recovery ability. With some nurturing in the future, it wasn't impossible for him to become a capable person. The group of people walked into a dilapidated room. Inside, there were only 4 bare walls. Apart from a bed made of wooden planks, there was only a tattered straw mat. Chu Lingfeng cheerfully rushed into the room like a big dog. He happily shouted, "Mother! Mother! I brought Master to see you. You'll be fine. You'll definitely get better." Chu Lingfeng was in high spirits. Su Yu, who was behind him, frowned. She could naturally feel that apart from the 3 of them, there was no one else in the room. The middle-aged woman on the wooden plank bed in front of them was indeed dead. "Blockhead, your mother is already dead." Before she came, she thought that Chu Lingfeng's mother was really, as he said, not dead. But now it seemed that Chu Lingfeng's obsession was too deep, and he was hallucinating. Thinking of this, Su Yu sighed. "Nonsense." Chu Lingfeng glared at Su Yu. "My mother didn't die. She's sitting right next to me, talking to me. You're not the master. You don't even know how to treat illnesses. How did you know?" As he spoke, he angrily turned his head to look at Luo Qingtong and asked, "Mistress, you can see my mother, right? She's right beside me now. She's not dead yet." Chu Lingfeng regarded Luo Qingtong's words as a precious jade. He believed that his master would definitely be able to see his mother. She must be able to save her mother's life. Chu Lingfeng firmly believed. "Yes, I can see that your mother is not dead yet." Luo Qingtong squinted at Chu Lingfeng's side. Beside him, there was a faint smoke-like shadow. Although the shadow was very faint, one could vaguely see that the outline of the shadow was Chu Lingfeng's mother. This was Chu Lingfeng's mother's soul. This blockhead didn't lie. His mother really wasn't dead yet. But now, there was no difference between her and being dead. The soul detachment illness is really rare. Luo Qingtong walked straight over. Chu Lingfeng's mother's soul was unconscious, sitting next to Chu Lingfeng, looking at him with an indescribable love in her eyes. Luo Qingtong only took a glance and knew that the other party was in a very strange state at the moment. She seemed to be dead yet not dead, like a soul yet not a soul, like a ghost yet not a ghost. Luo Qingtong had only seen the introduction of the soul detachment illness in ancient books before, so her interest was piqued. Chapter 123. In Chu Lingfeng's mother's body, there was still a sliver of life. Sure enough, the soul detachment illness was caused by the soul being sucked out of the body due to certain reasons. Although the soul had left the body, because the person's life was not meant to end, there would be a sliver of life left in the body. However, this sliver of life was very weak. If the soul of the person with the soul detachment illness did not return to the body in time, this sliver of life would slowly dissipate. Finally, it would completely disappear. Now, Chu Lingfeng's mother was in such a situation. The sliver of life in her body was about to disappear completely. Therefore, the shadow of the soul was so faint. However, since Luo Qingtong already knew what was going on and knew where the sliver of life was in her body, she naturally knew how to treat it. "Give me your hand," she said to Chu Lingfeng. When a man heard this, he immediately stretched out his hand without hesitation. "Master, is one enough? If not, I still have more." Luo Qingtong's lips twitched when she heard this. This blockhead, did he think that he was selling pickled pork knuckles? If one was not enough, then another? Enough. She only wanted some of Chu Lingfeng's blood. Men were yang by nature, especially Chu Lingfeng's body, which was full of yang energy. This kind of blood would be of great use to her next move. While speaking, Luo Qingtong held his hand and drew a line with her finger. In an instant, hot blood splashed out from Chu Lingfeng's wrist. Along with the blood that flew out, Luo Qingtong raised her hand and hurriedly drew a few symbols in the air. Then, she suddenly raised her hand. Quick! Following her clear shout, those symbols drawn with blood instantly entered the body of Chu Lingfeng's mother. Then, Luo Qingtong pushed the soul of his mother forward. The moment it entered the body, she fiercely bit her index finger and pointed at her forehead. Then, She quickly drew an extremely complicated and simple rune on her mother's forehead. Set. The moment the talisman was formed, Chu Lingfeng's mother's soul, which was about to be expelled from her body, was quickly pushed back and fixed in her body. In an instant, the lifeless woman lying on the bed regained her breath and heartbeat after Luo Qingtong's actions. His complexion slowly turned rosy. Although it still had a pale, greenish-black color, it was still alive. All right. Withdrawing her hand, Luo Qingtong took the handkerchief handed over by Su Yu and wiped her hand. Then, she said to Chu Lingfeng, who was dumbfounded, "Your mother is fine now. However, I can't wake up for now. I have to properly recuperate and replenish my soul power." After all, that soul had stayed outside for too long and had suffered too much damage. Yes, I know. Master, really, thank you so much. Chu Lingfeng was so happy that he didn't know what to do. He circled around Luo Qingtong like a big wolf dog and almost rushed up to kneel and lick her. How could Master be so powerful? She must be a celestial being from the heavens. To be able to save his mother. Chu Lingfeng wasn't completely brainless. His mother's situation, so many people came and said that she was already dead. Even the Earth-stage alchemist in the Blackfield sub-city. He had spent a huge amount of money to invite someone to take a look. They all said that there was no hope for his mother. If it wasn't for the fact that he could see his mother by his side, he might have believed those people's words. Only Master. With one look, he knew that his mother wasn't dead. Master was the most powerful person in the world. Chapter 124. Su Yu, who was watching from the side, was also shocked. She had seen with her own eyes how Chu Lingfeng's mother had regained her breath. This could it be that Master could really come back from the dead? For a moment, Su Yu was also stunned. Luo Qingtong didn't explain to them. Even if she did, they wouldn't understand. For many people, Chu Lingfeng's mother should already be a dead person. But for her, as long as there was still life, then she wasn't considered a dead person. How did your mother become like this? Compared to the shock of the two, Luo Qingtong was more curious about the reason why Chu Lingfeng's mother became like this. One must know that the soul detachment illness wasn't an illness that appeared easily. For Chu Lingfeng's mother to be like this, there must be some external force that sucked out her soul, causing her to become like this. Luo Qingtong was very interested in this so-called external force. I don't know, Chu Lingfeng said very honestly. This blockhead didn't know what was called lying. He scratched his head and said, "When I came back some time ago, I found that my mother had become like this. As for the specific reason, I don't know." He said honestly, "But I heard from Uncle Lee next door that my mother fell ill. Not long after she went out with the team of the Chamber of Commerce next door to gather medicinal herbs, she fell ill when she came back. After that, she became like this." Gathering medicinal herbs? Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows. "Are those medicinal herbs that your mother gathered still there?" "No." Chu Lingfeng scratched his head and said, "Those medicinal herbs were handed over to the Chamber of Commerce." "Ah, Master, wait. When my mother came back, she was holding something and told me not to touch it." As he spoke, he quickly got up and wandered around the empty room. Then Luo Qingtong and Su Yu saw him pull out a small cloth bag from the corner of the wall like magic. "Mistress, look, this is it." Chu Lingfeng excitedly ran back to Luo Qingtong with the small cloth bag. Luo Qingtong raised her hand and took the small cloth bag. When she opened it, she saw a black object that looked like tree bark. "This thing's aura." Luo Qingtong raised her hand and picked it up. "Master." Su Yu and Chu Lingfeng were shocked. Especially Chu Lingfeng. His mother had said that he must not touch this thing. If Master wanted to take it like this, would something happen? He was anxious and wanted to snatch the piece of black bark from Luo Qingtong's hand. However, he saw that Luo Qingtong raised her hand and crushed the piece of black bark into powder. "I see." Luo Qingtong's eyes flashed with a bloody light. She had just completely analyzed the black bark-like object with her eye technique. 1,000-year soul guiding wood. It turned out that this was the thing that had sucked out the soul of Chu Lingfeng's mother. It seemed that his mother's life was quite good. Generally, the soul that was sucked out by the 1,000-year soul guiding would be bound around it for eternity, unable to reincarnate. This 1,000-year soul guiding could be said to be the most evil thing in the world. However, for Luo Qingtong, this 1,000-year soul guiding was a rare good thing. As long as one could suppress its soul-sucking power, this 1,000-year soul guiding was an excellent treasure. It had a great effect on a cultivator's comprehension of the realm. Not only that, wearing it on one's body could also naturally nurture the cultivator's soul. There were all kinds of benefits. Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong asked Xu Lingfeng about the specific location where his mother gathered the herbs and prepared to leave the city. However, before she could reach the city gate, she was stopped by someone. Chapter 125. In front of her, all of them were Martial Marquis realm experts, wearing the Blackfield's silver-rimmed uniforms. They stood respectfully in front of Luo Qingtong. Their outstanding momentum and unyielding figure showed their determination to invite Luo Qingtong this time. "My lord," hearing their words, Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows and thought. Ming Zun, the supreme master of the Blackfield, the peerless expert? Why does he want to invite me? To refine medicine? Luo Qingtong's mind spun rapidly, but she nodded calmly on the surface. Okay, lead the way. No matter why he wants to see me, he won't kill me. However, Luo Qingtong didn't know that this was more important than her life. They came to the city master's mansion. Luo Qingtong was led into a magnificent hall by the attendant. Please wait here. My lord will be here soon. Luo Qingtong nodded and then looked around the hall. This should be the hall where the city master usually discussed matters. But now, it was used by Ming Zun as a place to rest and receive guests. Luo Qingtong glanced at the high platform in front of her. Suddenly, her eyes paused. Through her eyes, she saw clearly that there was a stack of albums on the high platform. On the third album that was pressed at the top, there was a picture of a fruit that looked like a jasper. The core of the fruit was heart-shaped. It was crimson inside and covered with a layer of jasper on the outside. Heaven heart, jasper fruit. Luo Qingtong's eyes lit up. This was one of the antidotes she was looking for. She had already got a heaven and earth dragon soul herb, and this heaven heart jasper fruit. Then she would have 2 antidotes in her hands. In the future, if she had the opportunity to get medicinal herbs that could replace the medicinal properties, she might be able to detoxify the poison directly. Thinking of this, she began to calculate. If Ming Zun had asked her to refine medicine, what were the chances of her asking for this heaven heart green jade fruit as the antidote? Just as she was thinking, her eyes suddenly caught a glimpse of a prescription under the stack of diagrams. Could this prescription be the medicine that Ming Zun wanted him to refine? Luo Qingtong thinks about it and starts to read it. However, the more she looked, the stranger her expression became. By the end, Luo Qingtong's lips were twitching and she didn't know what to say. **T. This prescription. Wasn't this prescription the prescription for the Xianyuan heart liquid that she had refined? How could Ming Zun's table have the prescription for the Xianyuan heart liquid that he had refined himself? And it was so detailed. The required herbs and medicinal properties were exactly the same. In fact, he had even written down the medicinal properties that he had added and the medicinal herbs that he had replaced. How did these underworld venerables know? Other than himself. Only that man from 9 Magi Mountain would know about this. Wait a minute. Luo Qingtong's body stiffened instantly. Ming Zun, that man from 9 Magi Mountain. He had the same powerful means, the same undetectable power, and the same tyrannical power. Damn, could that man from 9 Magi Mountain be Ming Zun? This thought flashed through Luo Qingtong's mind, and she was so frightened that her hair stood on end. Oh no, that man was definitely up to no good. He was disgusted by her just now. Why did he look for her this time? Could he be suspecting her identity again? Chapter 126. Of the 36 stratagems, leaving was the best stratagem. She'd better leave first, while that man hasn't come yet. Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong quickly got up and was about to leave. At this moment, a figure exuding an indescribable power stepped in from outside. Where do you think you're going in front of this sovereign? Yi Qianqian's gaze was cold. Luo Qingtong turned around and met his cold gaze hidden behind the dark gold mask. In an instant, she was like a prey being targeted by a hunter. A chill ran down her spine. This man was really starting to suspect her. It was different from the time when he came looking for her. Because of the Xianyuan e-solution, Luo Qingtong could clearly feel the difference. If at that time Yi Qianxian was only a little suspicious of her identity, then now it was 70 to 80%. Looking at the man's cold and penetrating gaze, as if he was hunting his prey, Luo Qingtong's body stiffened. Where did she get exposed? She was vexed in her heart. Luo Qingtong felt that her ability to disguise herself wasn't bad. Furthermore, when Yi Qianxian was disgusted and left, he had clearly accepted her identity as the evil Dr. Old Man. Why did he suddenly suspect her? Luo Qingtong sifted through the possibilities and finally gritted her teeth as she set her sights on the strange old man she met before. It was that stinky old man who exposed her identity. What do you mean by little baby? This man must have eavesdropped on it. Luo Qingtong thought of this and cursed Yi Qianxian in her heart for being a perverted voyeur. Did he dare to not pay so much attention to her? She thought that he was so disgusted that he wouldn't pay attention to her for a short period of time. She didn't expect his resistance to be so strong. How long has it been? He actually peeped on her again. Simply perverted. Luo Qingtong was depressed. If she had known, she would have been a little more hardcore. She would have made this man so disgusted that he would run away when he saw her. It would have saved him the trouble of thinking about her every day. She had gone too easy on him previously. Luo Qingtong thought for a while and gnashed her teeth. At the same time, Yi Qianxian slowly approached her. He lowered his head. His height of nearly 1.9 meters gave her a huge sense of oppression as he looked down at her from above. What's wrong? Not saying anything? I really want to know what other tricks you can play this time. His voice was cold. Luo Qingtong listened and cursed in her heart. I have a lot of tricks up my sleeve. If you have the ability, suppress your strength to the same level as mine. See how I play until you start doubting your life. However, although she dared to think this way, she didn't dare to say it out loud. The person in front of him was not someone to be trifled with. He had single-handedly created the Black Field, standing on equal footing with the 4 great holy dynasties. The man in front of him, even saying that he could summon the wind and summon the rain, was not enough to describe his valiance, not to mention the other party's terrifying martial strength. Luo Qingtong thinks it over and over again. She still thinks it's better if she doesn't confess. Haven't you heard of this saying? If you confess, you'll be in jail for a long time. If you resist, you'll be punished severely and go home for the new year. Thinking of the more and more things she did to this man, Luo Qingtong felt that she had to resist to the end. Until the last moment, she would not give up struggling. Haha, Lord, this old man doesn't know what you're talking about. She closed her eyes and pretended to be ignorant. Chapter 127. Shut up. Hearing her mention that night, Yi Qianxian's expression turned even colder. Thinking about what this person did that night, the veins on his forehead popped, but he quickly suppressed them. It seems like you're going to continue pretending, he said coldly. No, Lord, I really don't know what you're talking about. Luo Qingtong tried her best to make a final struggle as her mind raced. Oh my God, who could tell her what she should do in this situation? How could she muddle her way through? Yi Qianxian pressed on, forcing Luo Qingtong into a corner, but she still couldn't think of a good idea. At this moment, the man's cold voice sounded. Do you want to take it off yourself, or do you want this lord to take it off for you? This was clearly a statement. It wasn't a question. Luo Qingtong looked at the man's face in front of her and cursed in her heart. What the F***CK? What the F***CK? Was there a difference between the two? She was still going to be exposed. Begging for a third option. Wait a minute. Suddenly, Luo Qingtong thought of something. Hidden behind the Rakshasa mask, her eyes suddenly lit up and a blood-red light flashed through them. How could she forget that? There was a way. Lord, actually, this old man is really unbearably vulgar. My face is ugly, and I'm as thin as firewood. I'm afraid I'll dirty your eyes. Luo Qingtong talked about this and that in a deadpan manner, pretending that she didn't know anything. Seeing Yi Qianqian's expression turn cold and impatient as he raised his hand to grab her, she suddenly shouted, "Wait! I'll take it off. I'll take it off myself." As she spoke, she took off the Rakshasa, a mask covering her face. At the same time, her eyes flashed, and she used the power that Tian Mingzi left in her eyes to temporarily restore her eyes. Whoosh! The mask was taken off. Yi Qianqian's outstretched hand stopped in midair. He frowned as he looked at the face in front of him. In the man's condescending gaze, what was reflected was a devilishly beautiful young man's face. When Luo Qingtong went out this time, she didn't disguise herself as an old man in order to let her skin breathe. How could she have known that the old man she went to see was such a scammer? Her identity was exposed in an instant. Fortunately, she had a backup plan. Otherwise, he would be dead for sure this time. All right, I admit that the High Lord has seen through me. How did the High Lord find out? Luo Qingtong deliberately blinked her eyes and asked Yi Qianxian. In order to see clearly, she even blinked a few more times. Look carefully. My eyes are fine. Yi Qianxian ignored her. He stared at her. The young man in front of him was devilishly beautiful. Luo Qingtong's face was originally beautiful. Now that she was dressed as a man, when her eyebrows were raised, it accentuated her imposing manner even more. Coupled with her mixture of male and female, devilishly charming and unrestrained temperament, it made her male disguise even more handsome and enchanting. If Yi Qianren's temperament was noble, elegant, and domineering, then Yi Qianren's temperament was noble, elegant, and overbearing. Luo Qingtong's youthful temperament was enchanting, devilishly charming, and unrestrained. In this world, there was a kind of elegance that had nothing to do with gender. When she was a woman, Luo Qingtong could turn all living things upside down and bring disaster to countries and people. When she was a man, she could still turn the world upside down and make countless men and women bow down to her. But Yi Qianxian didn't seem to see this at all. He looked deeply into Luo Qingtong's eyes. Chapter 128. Whoosh! He lifted his hand and grabbed Luo Qingtong's chin, pulling her closer to him. At the same time, he used his other hand to rub the corner of her eye. Following his movements, the light in his eyes flowed freely and naturally. It wasn't her. Yi Qianxian was disappointed. He was already sure that the evil doctor was that woman in disguise. But now, the other party was obviously a teenager, and her eyes were intact. Yi Qianxian let go of his hand. At this moment, Luo Qingtong grabbed him. "Wait, my lord, you haven't answered my question." "Let go." Yi Qianxian's gaze was cold. After confirming that the person in front of him wasn't that woman, his last bit of patience was gone. If she wasn't that woman, she didn't have the right to waste his time. But how could Luo Qingtong let him off so easily? What the F***CK? This man was always suspicious of this and that. She was so scared that she was about to have a heart attack. If she hadn't been quick-witted and suddenly remembered that Tian Mingzi had left a trace of power in her eyes to heal them temporarily, she would have been caught. It would be strange if she let him off so easily. "My lord." Luo Qingtong grabbed Yi Qianxian's sleeve so tightly that she almost tied a knot. "You've been paying so much attention to me," she said shyly. Is it because you admire me?" Instantly, Yi Qianxian paused in his action of shaking her off. Outside, Bei Qing and the others who were rushing over to report also stopped abruptly. "Oh my God, what did they just hear?" The group of people looked at each other in shock. Then, they stood there with their eyes lowered and their noses lowered, not daring to move forward anymore. They were afraid that they would hear something terrible again. After all, there was only their master and the evil doctor in the main hall. Luo Qingtong also heard the commotion outside at this moment. She rolled her eyes, and before Yi Qianxian could say anything, she shouted, "You're so annoying! My lord, don't be embarrassed to admit it. I know you adore me. Otherwise, why did you sneak into my bathroom in the middle of the night? Just a moment ago, she kept telling me to take off my clothes. It's so embarrassing." Luo Qingtong was using her old and hoarse voice. Besides, other than Yi Qianxian, no one else knew that she wasn't an old man. She was going to go all out. See if you can disgust him to death. Bei Qing and the others outside were completely stunned by the shocking content. Master was really a homosexual. The one who broke it was actually that old evil doctor. Wait a minute. It was Master who wanted to do something to Xie first. Their hearts were filled with thoughts, but they tried their best to remain calm on the surface. Only they knew how turbulent their hearts were right now, especially the black field castellan, who was standing behind Bei Qing's wind feather, was even more shocked. So this was the reason why the Lord urgently invited Xie into the manor. No wonder the Lord never let any beauties get close to him. So it was because he had such a strange hobby. Just as everyone couldn't help but fill in the blanks, Yi Qianxian, who had been shocked by Luo Qingtong's bold words, finally reacted. "How dare you? You!" Before he could finish speaking, Luo Qingtong had already rushed out in a flash. As she rushed out, she covered her face and wept. I know. My lord, you adore me. But after thinking about it, I still think that I prefer to be the one on top." Chapter 129. As Luo Qingtong spoke, she flew out of the hall with a leap. "Damn you! If you pester me again, it means you won't be the next one. Let's see if you dare to provoke me again." Luo Qingtong ground her teeth as she quickly disappeared in front of everyone. Everyone watched this scene with their mouths wide open. Before they could react, Luo Qingtong's figure had disappeared without a trace. "My lord, if you change your mind, you can come and find me." Luo Qingtong's reluctant old voice sounded in the air. When everyone heard this, they felt goosebumps all over their bodies. At this moment, there was a loud bang. In the next second, the most magnificent building in the city lord's residence was smashed into a pile of gravel. Yi Qianxian walked out step by step, carrying a huge oppressive aura. Even Bei Qing and Feng Yu, who had been by Yi Qianxian's side all year round, were intimidated by the oppressive aura around him and took a few steps back. The two of them lowered their heads and didn't dare to breathe loudly, afraid that they would offend Yi Qianxian. His master usually wouldn't vent his anger on others, but now, he was in an unusual situation. Only the city lord of Blackfield's city lord came forward with a bitter face and trembling with fear. "My lord, there's news from the main city of the Tianyu Empire." He wiped his sweat, hoping that this news would appease his lord's anger. That demonic doctor was too bold. She dared to reject the lord. But the lord's hobbies were too strange. Of all things to like, she just had to like, should he treat the evil doctor better or worse in the future? The city lord of Blackfield's city lord looked distressed. His forehead was full of sweat, but he didn't dare to wipe it off. "Give it to me." Hearing his words, Yi Qianxian moved a little. The oppressive aura around him was also slightly restrained. The news from the Tianyu Empire must be about that woman, which was worth their special report. Thinking of that woman, Yi Qianxian could not help but think of the evil doctor. Thinking of what the other party had just said, he couldn't help but pull back his hand, almost crushing the letter that the Blackfield City Lord handed over to him. He took a deep breath, opened the seal, and took out the letter. "You found it?" He looked at the content indifferently. According to the news from the Tianyu Empire, they seem to have found a girl who is very similar to your description. But whether she is the one you are looking for, we have to wait for you to confirm. The mayor of Blackfield wiped the sweat off his forehead and reported. "That girl has been taken away by the Tianyu Empire branch. She's being taken good care of. We're just waiting for you to identify her." "Okay." Yi Qianxian crushed the letter in his hand. The description of the young girl's situation was indeed somewhat similar to what he had described, but he didn't know whether she was the woman he was looking for. If she was, then he could put the evil doctor aside for the time being. Thinking of Luo Qingtong, The veins on Yi Qianqian's forehead couldn't help but bulge. "Go and get ready. We'll leave the city tomorrow," he said in a low voice. Since he had found the girl, there was no need to stay here any longer. And he didn't want to see that evil doctor again. "Yes." Bei Qing and the others answered and left. Chapter 130. AI. So annoying. She squatted outside a secluded courtyard, looking at the magnificent city lord's mansion in front of her with a gloomy face. Her heart was indescribably tangled. What do you think this is? She had been too excited just now and forgot that she still needed to get the Heaven Heart green jade fruit from the city lord mansion. She thought that Ming Zun had come to find her to refine medicine, so she could find a way to get the Heaven Heart green jade fruit. In the end, that guy came to find trouble with her. She finally got away, but she didn't get the Heaven Heart green jade fruit. If it was any other herb, no matter how precious it was, Luo Qingtong wouldn't take the risk to come back. But this Heaven Heart green jade fruit was the antidote to the poison in her eyes, so it was very hard to get. Seeing that she had only gotten a heaven and earth dragon soul grass after so many days in the Black Field, and it was given by that strange old man, she knew how hard it was to get the antidote to the poison. Damn it, don't let her know who was the one behind the original owner's back, poisoning her eyes. Otherwise, she wouldn't let her go. She had to let her taste the torture that was 100 times more painful than gouging out her eyes. Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong fiercely gritted her teeth, then stood up and said righteously, "Okay, go. Isn't it just a man? I don't believe it. The city lord's mansion is so big. How can I meet him so coincidentally? It's just a herb. I'll think of a way to get it and leave. I don't believe I can meet that man again." Luo Qingtong thought and made up her mind. She took off the disguise on her body and stuffed it into the bushes at the side. Then she jumped into the city lord's mansion. As the core of the Black Field, the city lord's mansion was naturally heavily guarded. However, Luo Qingtong's eye technique allowed her to smoothly avoid all kinds of patrolling arrangements. Plus, she immediately knocked out a servant after entering, so she passed through all kinds of sentries without any danger. The people in the city lord's mansion probably didn't expect that there would be someone who dared to sneak into the city lord's mansion without being discovered. Therefore, Luo Qingtong was able to enter the inner courtyard without any obstructions. She remembered that the album was a gift from the people below to Ming Zun. The Heaven Heart green jade fruit should be kept in the storehouse of the city lord mansion, waiting for Ming Zun to use it when he wanted. He didn't want to throw it away like that. In any case, that lord didn't lack treasures. Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong felt more at ease. It was good that he didn't lack treasures. If she didn't lack it, no one would care even if she took it away. Luo Qingtong didn't want to meet that man again. She had already used up all her trump cards after 2 consecutive suspicions. If he did it again, she would really be exposed. Luo Qingtong easily found her way to the warehouse. At this point, she was in a difficult position, not for other reasons, but the medicinal storehouse of the city lord's mansion was an important place, and there were experts guarding it everywhere. No matter how powerful Luo Qingtong's Do technique was, she couldn't turn herself into a mosquito and fly in. She didn't know where to start with this kind of guarding method. Luo Qingtong frowned and squatted on the tree for a long time, but she still couldn't think of a good idea. At this moment, she suddenly heard someone's voice. "Little Six, are you going to get the medicine for Lord?" "Yes." Outside, 2 young men dressed as servants were greeting each other. Chapter 131. I really envy you, Little Six, to be able to serve the Lord. It's said that he's like a celestial being. The manservant who called Little Six said with a face full of envy. It's all right. The manservant called Little Six also had a face full of pride. The Lord is actually very approachable and easy to get along with. The main thing is that his face is really as beautiful as a celestial being. It makes people forget everything when they see it. He said with a face full of worship and respect. Luo Qingtong, who was hiding in the tree, almost fell down when she heard this. Approachable and easy to get along with? Luo Qingtong thought of the few times she saw Yi Qianxian's icy face and suspected that there was something wrong with the manservant's eyes. Otherwise, it would be nonsense. How could that man have anything to do with the words, approachable and easy to get along with? This was simply the biggest joke in the world. If he was considered approachable and easy to get along with, then her evil Dr. Ghost, I would be the reincarnation of Mithriya Buddha? And what the hell was that beautiful, celestial being? Luo Qingtong couldn't help but want to laugh when she heard this. She was sure that this manservant had never seen Yi Qianxian before. He had never even served him before. Otherwise, how could he say such things? She patiently squatted on the treetop and listened to the two manservants talk and flatter each other. After a while, the manservant named Little Six left with a satisfied expression on his face. Luo Qingtong quietly followed behind him. When he turned a corner, she suddenly appeared behind him and patted him on the shoulder. This is Brother Little Six. Luo Qingtong, dressed up as a manservant, was very delicate and pretty. She smiled at Little Six with a face full of harmlessness. I just heard you and that big brother chatting over there. Brother Little Six is very powerful. You can actually serve the Lord. I wonder if the Lord is scary? Luo Qingtong had already figured out the manservant called Little Six personality. He liked to listen to people's praises. So the more she boasted, the less suspicious the other party would be and the easier it would be to get information. Sure enough, as soon as the other party heard this, he happily told her about it. He was nothing more than a High Lord. He wasn't scary at all. The High Lord treated him very well. If Luo Qingtong hadn't dealt with Yi Qianxian before, she would have thought that he was telling the truth. While she flattered him, she discreetly inquired about what medicine he was here for. After getting all the information she needed, Luo Qingtong gave him an enchanting smile and knocked him out. When the manservant fainted, his face was still full of shock. He didn't know how Luo Qingtong's temperament and appearance changed so much in an instant. After dealing with the manservant, Luo Qingtong directly took off the manservant's clothes and put them on herself. At the same time, she disguised herself as the manservant and swaggered towards the medicine storehouse. Who is it? Before she could get close to the storehouse, she was stopped by someone. I'm here to get the medicine for the Lord. Luo Qingtong straightened her body. That Little Six didn't have any token on him. Luo Qingtong guessed that the person in charge of the medicine storehouse probably knew him. So she deliberately straightened her back to let the other party see her clearly. At this time, if there was even the slightest bit of guilty conscience, he would be suspected. Sure enough, that person sized him up and then directly waved his hand to let him pass. Luo Qingtong entered the medicine storehouse and reported the medicinal herbs she got from Little Six one by one. At the end, she also added the Heaven's Heart Green Jade Fruit. Heaven's Heart Green Jade Fruit. Chapter 132. Luo Qingtong's heart skipped a beat. Just then, she heard the man ask, "Did Lord say why he wanted the Heaven's Heart Jasper Fruit?" There are a few medicinal properties that don't match with the ones that Lord asked for. The man said, "If they are mixed together, something bad will happen." Luo Qingtong heaved a sigh of relief. Of course, she knew about this and had already found a reason. I don't know about this. Perhaps Lord suddenly had a whim and wanted this medicinal herb. I don't necessarily need to use medicine. However, I will definitely tell the great Lord about Senior's reminder when I meet him later. I will let him know of your sincerity. Luo Qingtong smiled. The man in charge of sorting the medicinal herbs felt at ease and nodded in satisfaction. He took the Heaven's Heart Jasper Fruit from the shelf and handed it to Luo Qingtong, saying, "Good, you rascal. We haven't seen each other for a day, and you're already so good at talking. All right, take this medicinal herb. Remember to tell Lord that it can't be mixed together." Okay. Luo Qingtong smiled and took the Heaven's Heart Jasper Fruit. She placed it on the medicine tray and carried the pile of medicinal herbs out. After leaving the medicine storehouse, she walked all the way out. Just as she reached a secluded place and was about to leave with the medicinal herbs in her hands, a figure suddenly walked towards her. "What are you doing here?" The person saw Little Six and frowned. He walked up and asked rudely. Luo Qingtong was about to leave when she paused. She was just thinking about how to get rid of the other party when her lips twitched when she saw the other party's face clearly. Damn it! The person who came was none other than Bei Qing. He happened to be on his way here and didn't pay much attention to Luo Qingtong when he saw her. But when he recognized that she was the manservant who brought the medicinal herbs for his master, he immediately frowned and followed her. This was because the direction Luo Qingtong was walking in wasn't the direction of Yi Qianxian's residence. Luo Qingtong also recognized him as Yi Qianxian's personal bodyguard. She calculated in her heart and knew that if her identity was exposed in the city lord's mansion, she really wouldn't be able to get out. She immediately pretended to be frightened and said, I need to pee." As she spoke, her face turned red and she immediately lowered her head, not giving Bei Qing a chance to probe further. At this time, Luo Qingtong was very glad that she had thought of taking the medicine away. If she had abandoned the medicine tray and left with only the heavenswell green jade fruit, she would have been exposed under Bei Qing's watchful eyes. How could this master and servant be so alike? Both of them were voyeurs. Need to pee. Luo Qingtong's words made Bei Qing stop at his tracks. Before he could react, Luo Qingtong had already lowered her head and apologized in fear as she hurriedly walked out. So sorry. I'll go deliver the medicine to the Lord right now. Luo Qingtong's performance was impeccable. Bei Qing frowned as he watched her leave. He thought for a while and then followed her secretly. Due to his sharp intuition as a bodyguard, he felt that something was wrong. Sensing that Bei Qing was secretly following her, Luo Qingtong cursed in her heart. She had originally wanted to find another opportunity to leave after she got rid of Bei Qing. She didn't expect to be targeted. That man was difficult to deal with, but the people around him were also difficult to deal with. What the hell? Luo Qingtong's lips twitched. Chapter 133. In the main hall, there was a burst of steam. Luo Qingtong stood outside the main hall with a tray of herbs in her hands. She couldn't take a step out of the main hall. Who could tell her what the hell was going on? Why was that man in the bath hall? Did he ask for a bunch of herbs just to soak himself in a bath? Luo Qingtong felt an indescribable pain in her balls. The picture of a handsome man bathing was very beautiful, but the problem was that this man wasn't that good looking. What if she was recognized? Luo Qingtong felt a wave of annoyance as she thought about it, especially when she thought about her first encounter with Yi Qianxian. She felt that not only was her balls hurting, but her stomach was also hurting. Just as she was about to leave the herbs at the door and leave, the man's cold and deep voice sounded from inside. Come in. It was obvious that the man had sensed her arrival. Luo Qingtong braced herself and walked in with the tray of herbs. She had already kept the heaven's heart green jade fruit. If it weren't for Bei Qing causing trouble, she would have run away long ago. She hoped that this man would let her leave after putting the herbs in. Then everything would be fine. As Luo Qingtong thought about it, she carefully carried the tray of herbs and walked into the bath hall. Lord, here are the herbs you asked for. Pour them in. The man sat in the middle of the huge bath without moving. 36 gigantic dragon heads were spitting out water from their mouths, making the bath palace look like a paradise on earth. The man's figure was hidden in the hazy mist, flickering in and out of existence. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't see him clearly. Luo Qingtong only raised her head to take a look before quickly lowering it. This man was really a one-of-a-kind evildoer. Even if he was half-naked, he was still irresistible. Luo Qingtong tried hard to control her eyes from wandering around. She was a servant. A servant. She definitely couldn't attract this man's attention. In front of Yi Qianxian, Luo Qingtong's every move was very careful. She gave full play to her acting skills from both her previous and current lives. She lowered her head and carried the medicine tray to the edge of the bathtub. Then, she poured the herbs into the bathtub in an orderly manner. Regardless of whether it was his actions or his expression, they were all meticulous. The man in the bathtub did not raise his head to look at her. From beginning to end, his eyes were tightly shut. Luo Qingtong could vaguely see that Yi Qianxian seemed to be soaking in some kind of medicinal liquid from the rising steam. The medicine this time was different from the one she saw at the Nine Magi Mountain. It should be another prescription. Luo Qingtong's curiosity rose as she thought about it. She didn't know what kind of injury the man had. Why was it so strange? With his strength and status, he actually couldn't find an alchemist who could heal his internal injuries. As Luo Qingtong thought about it, she was slightly distracted. At this moment, there was a sudden movement in the bathtub. Luo Qingtong raised her head and instantly saw a naked man. He was really naked. There was no cover at all. She stared blankly at the man in the middle of the bathtub as he stood up. That slim waist and narrow buttocks, strong and powerful body full of masculine charm and hormones, was completely exposed in front of her. The huge thing below was also incomparably clear. Plop! Chapter 134. Splash. This sound was simply too loud. Yi Qianxian turned his head and looked over. Seeing Luo Qingtong fall into the water, his brows furrowed. He instantly appeared beside her and grabbed her. At the same time, Luo Qingtong reacted the moment she fell into the water. F***CK, this is going to cause trouble. Thinking about how she had tried so hard not to attract this man's attention, but had failed because she fell into the water, her face instantly turned bitter. I hope that man doesn't notice me. Sigh, I'm such a fool. Isn't it just a man's naked body? It's not like I haven't seen it before. What's there to be shocked about? As Luo Qingtong thought about it, she raised her hand to grab the edge of the bathtub. At this moment, a figure appeared beside her. Then, a strong and powerful arm suddenly grabbed her and lifted her up. However, that figure was stuck between Luo Qingtong and the edge of the bathtub. Luo Qingtong watched helplessly as her hand grabbed a certain part of the man's body. Oh, splash! The moment she was lifted out of the water, a man's painful groan suddenly came from above her head. Feeling the warmth and length of the object in her hand, Luo Qingtong released her hand as if she had been electrocuted. This, my lord, I can explain. She felt her scalp go numb as she raised her head. She met the man's pair of cold eyes due to his pain and anger. At this moment, his eyes were already red. My lord, this is really just an accident. Luo Qingtong tried her best to save herself. At this moment, she could only pray that Yi Qianxian was kind enough to not blame a pitiful and ignorant servant like her. Otherwise, she would have to expose her identity. However, her eyes were clear now. She was fine. Now that she was exposed, the suspicion of the evil doctor that she had previously cleared would definitely follow. God, do you have to play with me like this? Yi Qianxian looked coldly at the trembling servant in front of him. Although he was extremely angry, he didn't have the energy to deal with her. Scram! He suddenly raised his hand and flung Luo Qingtong away. Bam! Luo Qingtong's body somersaulted a few times in the air before she could stand firmly on the ground. At this moment, she was already at the entrance of the inner hall, a few meters away from the bathtub. Did I escape? This man actually didn't make a move? Luo Qingtong heaved a sigh of relief, touched her heart that was beating rapidly in her chest, and hurriedly wanted to run out. Of course, it was for the best. Anyway, she had the medicine. Let's get out of here. However, just as she was about to leave, she turned around to take a look. She was shocked by what she saw. The man fainted at the edge of the bathtub, and blood started to seep out of his body. The blood flowed into the bath and was dissolved by the medicinal bath's aura. The red and white colors created a charming, enchanting, and shocking scene. It can't be. This man, his injury acted up again. Thinking of the scene when Yi Qianxian had just stood up, Luo Qingtong's heart flashed with a trace of understanding. Could it be that he had already felt something was wrong with his body at that time? That's why he got up and wanted to leave. He was only stopped by her falling into the water for a moment. Then she grabbed his vital part. He couldn't control the aura in his body and exploded. Luo Qingtong's lips twitched as she thought of this. What kind of F***king ill-fated relationship is this? Chapter 135. I really owe it to you, she muttered in her heart as she dragged the man out of the pool. Shinran's body was still bleeding even after she left the bathtub. It was still the same unscathed scene that Luo Qingtong had seen before. Seeing this scene, Luo Qingtong muttered angrily in her heart and raised her hand to grab the man's wrist. At this moment, her gaze accidentally landed on something on the man's lower body. Luo Qingtong's lips twitched violently, and she turned around with her eyes closed. She wasn't shy. That thing was too big. It kept occupying her attention. Can't you let me treat him properly? She glared fiercely at the man's handsome face in front of her and washed her eyes with her beautiful face. Luo Qingtong calmed herself down and used her eye technique to transfer her energy into the man's body. It was the same as the man she met at Nine Magi Mountain. More than half of his meridians were ruptured, and it seemed to be getting worse. Luo Qingtong frowned and discovered that nearly half of the man's meridians had not been repaired. They were still the same old injuries as before. What was going on? Wasn't the healing medicine that he was soaking in previously specially used to repair meridians? Why weren't these old injuries healed? Luo Qingtong frowned and didn't have time to think. She hurriedly repaired the man's broken main meridians. She only complained as she repaired them. This man was so valiant that he didn't treat himself as a human. These main meridians were actually forcefully ruptured by the medicine's power. So he soaked in the pool for half a day just to rupture his main meridians. How could he not think things through? That's why he was torturing himself like this. Luo Qingtong didn't know what to say. She used all her energy to repair Yi Qianqian's meridians while using her eye technique to inspect his body. She wanted to find a reason why his meridians ruptured so easily. Luo Qingtong had seen the medicine that he was soaking in earlier. The medicine's power wasn't strong. With this man's strength, his meridians shouldn't be ruptured by this little bit of medicine. What else did he do? Furthermore, the stronger a martial cultivator was, the stronger their body would be. Even soul cultivators, when their psychic power reached a certain peak, would strengthen their bodies. How could this man's meridians be so weak? Luo Qingtong furrowed her brows and searched his body. For a heaven-defying eye technique master like her, there were very few things in the world that she couldn't see through. If there was, she would do everything she could to find a reason. This could be considered a unique hobby of Luo Qingtong. In her previous life, Luo Qingtong, Luo Qingtong. Yi Qianren was very powerful, and Luo Qingtong would not provoke him normally. But now that he was unconscious, she naturally wouldn't let go of this opportunity. If it wasn't for this man's insistence on holding on to her, she would have used her identity as an evil doctor to treat his injuries and study his strange injuries. TSK. Strange, he's fine. How could his meridians rupture for no reason? Luo Qingtong checked Yi Qianqian's body from top to bottom. She even checked every single blood vessel. She just didn't know how such a strange thing could happen to his body. His meridians were as thin as paper, as if they would naturally rupture with a light touch. If it wasn't for this man's valiant strength, he would have been a cripple by now. Here came the problem. Chapter 136. Luo Qingtong couldn't figure it out. Most people wouldn't think about it if they couldn't figure it out. But Luo Qingtong wasn't the same. There weren't many things in this world that she couldn't figure out. She could even cure a legendary disease like the soul detachment illness. There was no reason for her to stumble in front of this man's strange injury. She frowned and continued to investigate the man's body. There must be a reason. There shouldn't be anything in this world that she couldn't see through. Just like this, Luo Qingtong's power cycled through Yi Qianqian's body again and again. Every cycle brought back a bit of the man's power. By the time she discovered that something was wrong with her body, and her meridians were in so much pain that they felt like they were about to explode, the accumulation of power in her body had already reached a peak. Fuck, is this man really a perfect tonic pill? Luo Qingtong looked at the power in her body that was stuffed to the brim with shock. Although the man's aura could only be brought back a bit each cycle, this was incomparably powerful to Luo Qingtong. Previously, she had only repaired his main meridians, and her strength had rapidly increased to the 9th stage of the martial master realm. At this time, Luo Qingtong was immersed in investigating Yi Qianxian's injury. Unknowingly, the aura in her body had already soared to the 9th stage of the martial general realm. Not only that, but her strength was also constantly increasing, wanting to break through to the martial general realm. At the same time, Luo Qingtong's spiritual power had also merged with the man's aura and increased to the level of a 9-star spirit master. No, she couldn't let her strength increase any further. Luo Qingtong subconsciously suppressed the power in her body, not allowing it to increase any further. Her jump from the martial master realm to the 9th stage of the martial general realm was already very shocking. If it increased any further, her body's foundation wouldn't be able to keep up with the growth of her strength. This was the reason why Luo Qingtong's meridians were tingling with pain at this moment. If this continued, even if she increased her strength, her weak foundation would cause her strength to be lower than those of the same level. More importantly, this F*King improvement was too fast and too exciting. Luo Qingtong had only been away from the Luo family for a little more than a month, but her strength had soared from the initial stage of martial master to the great martial general realm, or even higher. Wasn't this a F*King trap? The effects of the 9 Magi Mountains mutation were still lingering. According to the information that Luo Qingtong had obtained from the Blackfield, the Empire of Qin had sent people to investigate Jiuwu Mountain. At this time, her strength had increased so quickly. Wasn't this telling others that this person might have obtained the inheritance of the celestial sect of the 9 Shamans Mountain? Thinking of the benefits and troubles left by the immortal Slayer Palace, Luo Qingtong had a headache and held her forehead. She hastily suppressed the aura in her body. However, even if she could suppress the aura in her body, she couldn't suppress the aura of that man. What the F*CK? Husky. Luo Qingtong endured the pain of the energy in her body, crashing left and right. She turned back to look at Yi Qianren. Most of his meridians have been repaired. There shouldn't be any problems. The rest was up to him. Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong jumped up and rushed out of the bathroom. Her body was trembling slightly from the pain. Although she stumbled as she rushed out of the bathroom, it looked like she had been scolded and rushed out in a hurry. Chapter 137. Swish, swish. Luo Qingtong bit her lips and ran as fast as she could as soon as she got out of the city lord's mansion. She wanted to vent her power. Not long after she left, Bei Qing and the others realized that something was wrong and rushed into the bathroom. Master! Bei Qing and the others were shocked when they saw Yi Qianxian lying on the ground. Quick, prepare the heavenly flying boat. Bring Master back to the main city immediately. Bei Qing said without hesitation when she saw Yi Qianxian's bleeding body. Feng Yu carried Yi Qianxian on his back. Everyone rushed out of the city lord's mansion. Not long after, the huge and beautiful flying boat rose into the sky. Many people looked at this scene in surprise. They didn't know why Ming Zun suddenly left the Blackfield sub-city. In the mountains, Luo Qingtong's figure swept up a gust of wind and swept forward. Her destination was the place that Chu Lingfeng mentioned before, the place where his mother had an accident when she was picking herbs. It was also the place where the 1,000-year soul guiding wood was. Bang! 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 Luo Qingtong's figure swept into the dense forest. Countless trees and grass were cut into pieces by the sharp wind that swept up by her body. The girl's figure was extremely fast. Almost every place she landed was the most suitable place for her to sweep away. In just a moment, she had swept forward for nearly a few thousand meters. At this moment, the pair of eyes with distinct black and white had returned to being empty and black because of the time limit of Tian Mingzi's power had run out. Wisps of bloody light flickered and jumped from her eyes, making the girl look like a Shura goddess from hell. The flower of dark prison. Bang! 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 Many demonic beasts in the forest were slaughtered before they could see Luo Qingtong's figure clearly. At the same time, Luo Qingtong jumped to the top of the tree and roared towards the sky with a deafening roar. The bloody light in her eyes became more and more obvious. Kill! The power in Luo Qingtong's body was restless. In order to prevent him from breaking through, she had placed a spiritual suggestion on him, making him unable to break through to the next realm. If one's cultivation level did not increase, one's strength would not be able to be released. The only way to do that was to release the energy that had nowhere to go in her body through external forces. However, with so much power, especially the power of a man, that allowed her to break through without any hindrance, it was too much of a pity to disperse it just like that. Luo Qingtong could only try her best to find the location of the Millennium Soul Guiding Wood. With that thing, she would be able to seal the power in her body as much as possible. In the future, he would wait for the right opportunity to use it. Swish, swish, swish. Luo Qingtong's figure flashed through the mountains. Chu Lingfeng wasn't very detailed. If they wanted to find the Millennium Soul Guiding Wood, they had to rely on Luo Qingtong herself. However, she had her eye technique. As long as she followed the path with the densest Qi, she would be able to find the 1,000-year soul guiding wood. Swish! After searching for a period of time, Luo Qingtong finally found the 1,000-year soul guiding wood when the power in her body couldn't bear it anymore. The huge crown of the tree covered the sky and the sun. This black 1,000-year soul guiding wood was like a monster standing in the depths of the mountains. Its whole body emitted a terrible, evil aura. Around it, countless evil spirits were waving their fangs and brandishing their claws. Along with the swaying leaves and branches of the 1,000-year soul guiding wood, they felt Luo Qingtong's living aura and silently roared at her with their mouths wide open. At the same time, bursts of soul-sucking aura were emitted from the 1,000-year soul guiding wood. Interesting, it actually has spiritual intelligence. Feeling that those evil spirits were controlled by the 1,000-year soul guiding wood and didn't rush up, Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows. The blood-red light in her eyes was full of interest. No wonder Chu Lingfeng's mother could come back alive after encountering such a scene. Chapter 138. Swish! Luo Qingtong's figure appeared within the alluring range of the 1,000-year soul guiding wood. Luo Qingtong restrained the bloody light in her eyes and the restless power in her body. With a wooden face, she pretended to be tempted by the 1,000-year soul guiding wood and walked towards its center step by step. This 1,000-year soul guiding wood had already matured. Demonic plants with spiritual awakening were extremely ferocious. In particular, this 1,000-year soul guiding would had no one to guide it at the beginning of its spiritual awakening. It had already started killing, and its ferocious aura was even stronger. Once it started killing, it meant that it was almost impossible for this 1,000-year soul guiding would to pass the transformation tribulation. The heavens would not allow such a murderous demonic plant to pass the transformation tribulation. Unless someone helped it, this 1,000-year soul guiding could only stop here for the rest of its life. Unfortunately, there were many demonic beasts and demonic plants in this world that were unable to awaken their spiritual awakening. Even if they grew for tens of millions of years, they still could not transcend. And this 1,000-year soul guiding was only 1,000 years old, and it already had such an opportunity. But because it took the wrong path, it was cut off from the opportunity. However, this had nothing to do with Luo Qingtong. She walked forward step by step under the allure of the 1,000-year soul guiding wood. As she approached, the surrounding ghosts were restless. Sensing Luo Qingtong's aura as a living person, they wanted to pounce on her all the time, but they were restrained by the 1,000-year soul guiding wood and could not move. They could only open their mouths and roar invisibly. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps, Luo Qingtong was getting closer and closer under the alluring effect of the thousand-year soul guiding wood. Just as she walked under the heart of the thousand-year soul guiding wood, the trunk of the thousand-year soul guiding wood suddenly opened, revealing a trunk full of sharp teeth. It was stained with blood, and there were still pieces of flesh and bones hanging on it. In the heart of the tree, one could still see the dense white bones inside. Now is the time. The bloody light in Luo Qingtong's eyes suddenly flashed. In an instant, she broke free from the alluring power of the thousand-year soul guiding wood. To her, the soul-sucking ability of this thousand-year-old soul guiding wood was not as powerful as her eye technique. In her previous life, when Luo Qing's pupils were at their peak, the moment she used her pupil technique, even those who wanted to kill her would be controlled by her pupil technique as long as their willpower was not firm enough. What was the soul-sucking power of this thousand-year-old soul guiding wood? Boom! Luo Qingtong avoided the mouth of the thousand-year soul guiding wood and went straight for the thousand-year tree core in its trunk. This was the essence of the thousand-year soul guiding wood. With this tree core, the 1,000-year soul guiding wood was truly a 1,000-year soul guiding wood. Only its tree trunk had the power to guide souls. That was why there were so many miraculous things. What Luo Qingtong needed to do now was to take out the tree core. With this tree core, Luo Qingtong could easily obtain another millennium soul guiding wood in the future. Moreover, it was much cleaner than this one. She found the power of the thousand-year-old soul guiding wood to be dirty. Screech. The thousand-year soul guiding wood didn't expect Luo Qingtong to be able to break free from its soul-sucking power. In an instant, it let out a sharp cry. That huge tree trunk's mouth quickly closed, wanting to wrap the tree core back into it. At the same time, the leaves and branches around it suddenly gathered together and turned into sharp blades, cutting towards Luo Qingtong. The surrounding malicious spirits were also released. They screamed and pounced towards Luo Qingtong. Bursts of chilly wind assailed her nostrils, and the smell of blood assaulted her face. Luo Qingtong's expression didn't change. Chapter 139. Boom! The suppressed aura in Luo Qingtong's body suddenly erupted. The man's aura that entered her body was too strong. Even if only a trace of it was left each time, it was enough to make Luo Qingtong's body explode. If she was willing to advance, it wouldn't matter. This power would only help her. However, Luo Qingtong was unwilling to advance, so this power in her body became a disaster. At this moment, this power was completely released by her. Rumble! Cyclones suddenly exploded around Luo Qingtong's body. The power that rushed out of her body suddenly formed a strong and powerful vortex aura, stirring up the air around her, forming a scene like a tornado. All the leaves and branches that rushed out from the thousand-year soul guiding wood like sharp blades were all twisted into pieces by this sudden burst of tyrannical power. At the same time, Luo Qingtong also drew out the life and death sword that suddenly appeared in her hand. The power of the death blade was quickly activated. Almost instantly, the black death chi filled the air. The black death chi that was heavier than the yin chi suddenly turned into a scythe of the death god under Luo Qingtong's wave, sweeping through the air. Puff! Puff! The sharp screams of the ghosts that rushed over were all turned into green smoke under this attack, dissipating between heaven and earth. The life blade replenished, and the death blade harvested. When the life and death sword that carried the profound meaning of life and death transformed into the death blade, it was the most feared weapon of these ghosts. These ghosts were controlled by the Millennium Soul Guiding Wood and were drawn out of the souls of living people. They were immortal in this world, neither souls nor ghosts. In this special state, ordinary Yang treasures couldn't do anything to them. Just by looking at how they could appear in the daytime, one could know how difficult they were to deal with. However, when the life and death sword in Luo Qingtong's hand transformed into the death blade, it was the nemesis of all dead things in the world. These ghosts weren't afraid of sunlight or yang treasures, but they could not be afraid of Luo Qingtong's death blade. Shrill screams could be heard in the air. Wherever Luo Qingtong's death blade passed, the Yin spirits would shriek and be cut into wisps of green smoke, disappearing from this world. These evil spirits were the most important life-saving means of the 1,000-year-old soul-guiding wood. By relying on these spirits, it had killed countless powerhouses who wanted to seize its 1,000-year tree core. But at this moment, the method it relied on to save its life was under Luo Qingtong's death blade. Under the tyrannical power that burst forth from the young girl's body, it suddenly shattered. Screech! The 1,000-year soul-guiding wood shrieked. Its trunk kept squirming, trying to move the 1,000-year tree heart away. However, it was too late. Luo Qingtong grabbed the tree heart hanging high in the air and gave it a hard tug. In the next second, the 1,000-year soul-guiding would let out an incomparably mournful cry. The moment the tree heart left its body, the entire, huge 1,000-year soul-guiding would withered in an instant. As for the Yin spirits that were imprisoned around it, they were all reduced to ashes in an instant amidst shrill screams. The 1,000-year soul-guiding wood was dead. The spirits were all turned into ashes. Those evil spirits could be considered to have been freed. Chapter 140. Senior brother, look. Someone in the team raised his hand and pointed forward. Yuan Ma raised his head, and his eyes instantly froze. In front of him, green smoke rose, mixed with countless gray qi, and quickly spread from the sky. The dense yin qi instantly caused his pupils to shrink. It's the 1,000-year soul-guiding wood. Let's go. Yuan Ma came for the 1,000-year soul-guiding wood. This time, he was ordered by his teacher to walk outside. Among the tasks he received, there was a requirement to obtain the heart of the 1,000-year soul-guiding wood. This was also his last task in the outside world. After obtaining the heart of the 1,000-year soul-guiding wood, he could complete the task perfectly and return to the Sane Academy. Otherwise, he wouldn't have stayed in this Black Field subcity after being humiliated by Luo Qingtong. For Yuan Ma, this Black Field subcity and Luo Qingtong were his most unbearable memories. However, he had just received news from a Chamber of Commerce that there might be a 1,000-year soul-guiding wood here. Would there be a mistake? Thinking of this, Yuan Ma quickly rushed forward. He was so fast that the freshmen of the Sane Academy behind him had to use all their strength to keep up with him. If it weren't for his junior sister in the team and the fact that she might encounter danger in this mountain range, Yuan Ma would have already left them behind and left by himself. When they arrived at the location of the 1,000-year soul-guiding wood, Luo Qingtong had just put away the life and death yin-yang sword and was about to leave with the heart of the 1,000-year soul-guiding wood. Noticing that someone was quickly approaching, Luo Qingtong frowned and quickly tore off her manservant's clothes, wearing only a set of white inner clothes. At the same time, she covered her face with a light-colored veil. Luo Qingtong had the Rakshasa mask that she used to disguise herself as the evil doctor, but at this time, she wasn't wearing any disguise, so it wasn't suitable for her to use it. She had just finished doing all this when Yuan Ma and the others rushed out from grass. 1,000-year soul-guiding wood. How could Yuan Ma and the others not know that the heart of the 1,000-year soul-guiding wood had already been obtained by the young lady on the other side? Luo Qingtong was wearing a white undergarment. The thin inner garment was of excellent quality, completely outlining the girl's graceful figure. Standing beside the huge, pitch-black, withered 1,000-year soul-guiding wood, Luo Qingtong's white inner garment was blown up by the wind, and the veil covering her face was also blown up. The collision of black and white made the girl's figure seem even more ethereal. She was as beautiful as a celestial in a painting. Many of the freshmen of the Sacred Institute were stunned by the scene. The young girl was like a fairy that had walked out from the depths of the mountains, making people unable to bear to disturb her, especially when she glanced over when she heard the commotion. Her eyebrows swayed, and she was as beautiful as a painting. Mississippi, Even the anxious Yuan Ma felt suffocated the moment he saw Luo Qingtong. In his life, he had never seen such a quick-witted and beautiful girl. Luo Qingtong stood in the deep and gloomy shadow of the 1,000-year soul-guiding wood, but she was like a huge, luminous body, attracting people's attention. Just a glance at her made people feel as if they were about to fall in love with her. There was a kind of beauty in this world. Even if you only peeked at a corner of her silhouette, you would be deeply immersed in her, unable to extricate yourself. Seeing Yuan Ma's obviously sluggish expression, a pretty girl in a yellow dress from the Sacred Institute's team suddenly had a touch of jealousy in her eyes, and she suddenly attacked. Pretending to be mysterious, quickly hand over the heart of the 1,000-year tree. That's ours. Chapter 141. Junior Sister. The woman's attack was too sudden, and Yuan Ma couldn't stop her in time. Seeing the pitch-black crow-bone whip approaching, Luo Qingtong's eyes flashed with a cold blood-red light. With her eyesight, she was naturally able to tell that the crow-bone whip was covered in a strange and intense pain. If an ordinary person touched it, their entire body would fester as long as they were wounded. This woman was vicious. Junior Sister? This was the junior sister that Yuan Ma had asked her to save using her identity as the demonic doctor. He said that there was a problem with her meridians. In his opinion, she was doing quite well right now. Luo Qingtong sneered, and her eyes flashed with a blood-red light. In the next second, she didn't dodge or evade. Instead, she raised her hand and grabbed at the incoming crow-bone whip. "Miss, you can't." Seeing Luo Qingtong's hand reaching for the whip, Yuan Ma, who knew his junior sister's temperament, panicked and immediately shouted. The yellow-robed woman's face was filled with joy. But when she heard Yuan Ma shout, her face sank. Her eyes flashed with a trace of viciousness. She raised her hand, and the crow-bone whip whipped towards Luo Qingtong's face at a crafty angle. "I'll pull off this slut's veil and leave a mark on her face. Let's see how she can use this face to seduce others." The yellow-robed woman thought hatefully. Sensing the change in the whip's angle, Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows, and her expression became even colder. There was a path to heaven, but you didn't take it. There was no door to hell, but you barged in. Since she wanted to disfigure others, then she would let her have a good taste of it. "Pa!" Luo Qingtong didn't move, but her palm flipped along with the changing angle of the long whip, accurately grabbing the tip of the long whip. Her opponent's whip technique, which he thought was ever-changing, was completely unfathomable before her eye technique. What a vicious heart. "I'll return this poison to you." Shwa! With a cold snort, Luo Qingtong's palm fiercely stroked the tip of the whip. In an instant, the long whip was like a dragon, and it was pulled into a line under her hand. At the same time, Luo Qingtong instantly added and deleted the poisonous aura. With a swoosh, she suddenly raised her hand, and this long whip was like a rebounding snake. In an instant, with a speed even faster than before and an even more tricky angle, it suddenly attacked back. "Ah!" The woman in yellow was completely caught off guard. She screamed and covered her face. The whip suddenly bounced back and viciously lashed her face, leaving a wound so deep that her bones could be seen. "Ah! How dare you hurt me?" The yellow-clothed woman felt a sharp pain on her face. She lifted her hand and touched the blood on her face. She was on the verge of collapse. Her face. Junior Sister. Seeing the yellow-clothed woman injured, the faces of Yuan Ma and the others changed. This junior sister was their teacher's only beloved daughter. They had to take good care of her for sneaking out. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to bear the consequences if their teacher questioned them. "Junior sister, are you all right?" They all surrounded her. At this moment, the yellow-clothed woman suddenly screamed. "Ah, my face. It's so itchy. Ah, it hurts." As she spoke, she desperately scratched her face. Yuan Ma and the others heard this and looked at her face. With a single glance, they all sucked in a breath. Junior Sister. Chapter 142. The wound on the yellow-robed woman's face was rapidly festering. The wound was festering at an extremely fast speed. In an instant, the skin near the wound had completely festered. In an instant, the delicate and beautiful junior sister had turned into a demon. Not only that, the festering flesh near the wound was constantly wriggling, as if something was growing. In a short while, a mournful and strange face was struggling to break out of the wound, silently roaring near the wound. Wonma and the others felt a chill run down their spines when they saw this ghostly scene. Junior sister, what poison did you smear on your whip? Quickly take out the antidote and consume it. Wonma anxiously called out to her. The yellow-robed woman scratched her face with all her might, until the festering flesh was badly mutilated and pus and blood flowed out, but it didn't relieve the itch at all. Through everyone's gazes, she discovered that an extremely frightening change had occurred on her face and immediately began to cry. I didn't. I smeared bone-rotting poison on it. It won't itch. It's her. It must be her. It's this woman. She did something to my whip. As the yellow-robed woman spoke, she raised her hand and pointed at Luo Qingtong, who was wiping her fingers and preparing to leave. Seeing her finger pointing at her, the latter immediately raised her eyebrows and generously admitted it. That's right, I did it. So what? Giving her a taste of her own medicine. I don't think I did anything wrong. Moreover, the raw material of the poison was the bone-rotting poison that you smeared on it. Luo Qingtong spoke until here and lightly laughed. You should be glad that the bone-rotting poison isn't strong enough, and I don't have enough materials on hand. Otherwise, you would be in an even worse state. What did you say? You bitch. The yellow-robed woman was flustered by Luo Qingtong's words. Then, she faced the crowd of the holy court and cried. Senior brother, look, she admitted it. She poisoned me. She wanted to harm me. Why aren't you all taking revenge for me? While you're at it, take back the 1,000-year tree art. Junior sister. Wonma berated her, then looked at Luo Qingtong. Miss, it was indeed my junior sister who acted rashly this time. Please don't blame her. We don't want a 1,000-year tree heart anymore. Please help us cure the poison on my junior sister's face. Ah, Luo Qingtong chuckled. The 1,000-year tree heart is mine to begin with. What do you mean you don't want it? As for the poison on her face, it was her own doing. I don't have the antidote. Luo Qingtong had injected the yin-chi of the 1,000-year soul-guiding wood into the bone-corroding poison, changing the toxicity of the bone-corroding poison. How could there be an antidote? It wasn't difficult to save the woman in yellow, as long as Luo Qingtong was willing to use her eye technique to force out the mixed yin-chi and poison from her body. But why would Luo Qingtong do this? Since the other party had a vicious heart, this face was quite compatible with her. A rotten person with a rotten face, a perfect match made in heaven. As Luo Qingtong spoke, she leaped and was about to leave. How could Wonma and the others let her go just like that? They could give up the 1,000-year tree heart, but nothing could happen to their junior sister. Otherwise, how could they explain it to their teacher? Miss, leave the antidote. Otherwise, I'm afraid you won't be able to leave. Wonma says and rushes towards Luo Qingtong to stop her. Behind him, the freshmen of the Holy Court also rush over. Chapter 143. Huh, Luo Qingtong chuckled. The next second, the bloody light in her eyes flickered. In a flash, she passed by the freshmen of the Saint Academy, who came to intercept her. Their numbers were of no use to Luo Qingtong. In fact, it had even helped her to leave. Senior brother. The freshmen of the Saint Academy who rushed to Luo Qingtong first saw Luo Qingtong disappear in a flash. Instead, they saw Wonma rushing to Luo Qingtong from behind. Senior brother, dodge. They hurriedly shouted. These freshmen of the Saint Academy didn't know what was going on. They had clearly surrounded that young girl. So how did she manage to escape from their encirclement in such a short time? Not only that, why were their attacks aimed at their senior brother? Wonma's face turned cold when he saw their attacks coming. He quickly changed directions in the air and dodged the attacks. But in this way, his speed inevitably decreased. Swish! With this dodge, Luo Qingtong's figure appeared hundreds of meters away from them. The girl's figure swayed like a fairy. Her waist was light, like a willow branch in the wind. She stood at the top of a new branch. Luo Qingtong turned back to look at them. Her lips curled into a smile. Her picturesque eyes and brows were so beautiful that they could almost feel her beauty through the veil. A genius of the Sane Academy? You're just SOSO. She chuckled. While speaking, she suddenly let go of the slender branch in her hand. In the next second, Luo Qingtong's figure followed the movement of the branch and soared into the sky like a green bird. She flew over the distant mountains and into the distance. Yu Wenma and others chased after her, but they couldn't catch up with her. In their sight, there was only the delicate and beautiful figure of the girl. She was as light as a fairy. She completely disappeared in front of them. Yu Wenma stared at Luo Qingtong's disappearing figure with deep eyes. In his mind, the girl's smile kept replaying over and over again. Wanton, free, and unfettered. The dazzling elegance of it completely overshadowed the scenery of the distant new sky. Even those derogatory words didn't sound so infuriating. This was the first time that Yu Wenma felt his heart move. That young girl, who was she? Just as Yu Wenma's heart was stirred, Luo Qingtong's figure had already passed through the treetops, and in an instant, she had entered the depths of the mountain range. After finding a secluded and safe place, she disguised herself and headed straight out of the mountain range. On the way, she met Yu Wenma and the others from afar. The latter and the others were unable to defeat Luo Qingtong. Without obtaining the antidote, they didn't dare to stay in the mountain range any longer. They hurriedly left with the yellow-robed woman. Luo Qingtong guessed that they would return to the Sacred Academy soon. After all, the poison on the yellow-clothed woman's face wasn't something that could be easily cured. But even if they returned to the Sacred Academy, it wouldn't be that easy to cure. Ignoring them, Luo Qingtong avoided meeting Yu Wenma and the others and headed straight for the Blackfield sub-city. Just as she was about to enter the huge, dark city, Luo Qingtong's footsteps suddenly stopped. She thought of the man she had left in the bath hall halfway through her treatment. You should be fine, right? Luo Qingtong felt inexplicably guilty. Speaking of which, he was very unlucky every time he met her. God knows if she really didn't do it on purpose. Luo Qingtong felt a toothache when she thought about it. Just then, she heard the discussions around her. Chapter 144. Luo Qingtong's heart shuddered. Her mansion? Luo Qingtong slowed down her steps and looked at the gossipy people beside her. Those people didn't notice her and continued to talk. Speaking of which, a lot of things have happened in the past 2 days. First, we don't know what happened. Then Ming Zun suddenly left. Now, something happened to the evil doctor's mansion. Yes, someone responded. I heard that someone came to seek revenge and was killed in the middle of the night. When the people from the bloody arena arrived, many people were killed and injured. The evil doctor's homosexual slave lover was also taken away. Luo Qingtong stopped listening when she heard this. Homosexual slave lover? The only one who could meet this condition was Su Yu. Luo Qingtong didn't care where this rumor came from. She got up and rushed to her mansion. She finally found a suitable personal attendant with great difficulty. But someone dared to come and find trouble with her. They took away her people. They even injured the people in her mansion. Luo Qingtong's face darkened completely. It was true that if the tiger didn't show its might, they would treat her like a sick cat. Swish, swish, swish. Luo Qingtong's figure appeared in her mansion. At this moment, there was a mess everywhere in the mansion. Outside the door, there were bloodstains like splashes of ink. Even after washing, the traces could still be seen. Luo Qingtong's eyes were cold as she stepped into the mansion's door. Who is it? There were still war slaves guarding the door. When they saw someone coming in, they immediately attacked. Luo Qingtong grabbed his fist and threw him aside. Call out all the people in the mansion who were still alive. Luo Qingtong said in a low voice. The Rakshasa mask on her face looked ferocious and terrifying at this moment. She looked at the war slave in front of her calmly. The latter was stunned for a moment and then shouted in surprise. Master! Master is back! Everyone gather! Master is back! The war slave's voice echoed in the mansion. In an instant, the slaves that Luo Qingtong had purchased appeared in front of her one by one. Among them was Chu Lingfeng. Master, you're back. Seeing Luo Qingtong, Chu Lingfeng immediately rushed over. The 1.8 m tall blockhead was covered in injuries. There were bone-deep wounds and blood everywhere. Many of the battle slaves behind him were in the same situation. What's going on? Luo Qingtong glanced at them and walked straight into the main hall. She looked at everything coldly. Luo Qingtong asked in a deep voice as she glanced at the severely injured battle slaves. She immediately sealed their lifelines with a flick of her finger and fed them a bottle of life-prolonging medicinal liquid. Master, someone is here to seek revenge. They are specifically targeting Su Yu, Chu Lingfeng said in a loud voice. It turned out that after Luo Qingtong had bought Su Yu, someone had immediately come to buy slaves. Moreover, they had specified that they wanted to buy Su Yu. After being rejected by the slave market, they had inquired about it. After learning that it was Luo Qingtong who had bought Su Yu, they had come to buy Su Yu back. Chu Lingfeng originally thought that these people were Su Yu's relatives. He didn't expect that Su Yu's complexion would change greatly after seeing these people. The two sides almost clashed on the spot. That night, those people came to kill them. Chapter 145. Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes. Behind the Rakshasa mask, a pair of empty black eyes overflowed with murderous intent and flashed with blood-red light. No one can touch the people around me without my permission. How dare you seek revenge on me? You're courting death. The blood-red light in Luo Qingtong's eyes was ice-cold. Go and call the people from the bloody arena. Tell them that if something like this happens in my mansion in the Blackfield again, then my cooperation with them will be terminated. Even in the Blackfield, there are people seeking revenge on her. What was the use of having such a partner? There were so many forces in the Blackfield. Why couldn't she cooperate with anyone? Why did she have to work with the bloody arena? They had really let her down. This time, Su Yu's arrest had completely touched Luo Qingtong's nerves. Even if it was a cat or a dog, she wouldn't allow others to touch the people around her. Whoever dared to reach out would be chopped off. If those people dared to seek revenge on her, then they were seeking their own deaths. Lord Evil Doctor. The people from the bloody arena were called over by Chu Lingfeng and the others. They immediately lowered their heads and kept wiping away their sweat. This time, it was indeed our bloody arena's mistake. They didn't expect that someone would dare to attack the Lord Evil Doctor's mansion in the Blackfield. Where did this hothead come from? He didn't even put the dignity of the Blackfield in his eyes. Or did those people think that no one would know if they came in secret? The people from the bloody arena thought for a while and gnashed their teeth. Don't let him find those people. Otherwise, without waiting for the Lord Evil Doctor to make a move, they would all be killed. Lord Evil Doctor, don't worry. We've already mobilized all our connections to find out the whereabouts of those people. There won't be a next time. Luo Qingtong interrupted him. The pair of cold eyes on the Rakshasa mask looked at him coldly. If there's a next time, you people from the bloody arena don't have to come to me anymore. As for these people this time, you don't have to care about them. Those who dare to touch her people, she would let those people know the price. Yes, the steward of the bloody arena didn't dare to say more. He hurriedly wiped his cold sweat and retreated. This Lord Evil Doctor's power was too strong. Facing the other party, he felt as if he was facing a high lord. What the hell? Chu Lingfeng was puzzled as he watched the steward of the bloody arena leave, sweating profusely. Master, why don't we let them investigate? Wouldn't he be able to find out the whereabouts of those people faster and rescue Su Yu if he made those people in the bloody arena weaker? Chu Lingfeng still cared a lot about the young man who spoke good words for him in front of the master. Other than his master, he only recognized Su Yu as his companion. There's no need. Someone knows the whereabouts of those people better than them. As Luo Qingtong spoke, she sneered and walked to a parasol tree in front of the courtyard. She lifted her foot and kicked it hard. Do you want to come out by yourselves? Or do you want me to drag you out one by one? She crossed her arms and said. The person who was hiding on the parasol tree felt a wave of bewilderment. Did the evil doctor discover that they were waiting for him? Just as they were hesitating, Luo Qingtong became impatient. She directly asked Chu Lingfeng to bring a bucket of water over. With a bang, she poured the water on top of the parasol tree. Chapter 146. Bang! Bang! There were two muffled sounds. Ouch! Two figures were thrown out of it. Are you satisfied? Luo Qingtong looked at them, then raised her hand and clapped twice. Everyone else, come out now. Luo Qingtong crossed her arms and stood in the middle of the courtyard. She looked coldly at the two people who fell out and swept her gaze across the courtyard. The face on the Rakshasa mask was cold and gloomy. She was too lazy to catch them one by one, so she simply called out their names. Those on the eaves 30 degrees to the left, the flower bed at the back, the bushes at the front, the wall hanging on the left, the pillars on the right. Everyone who is hiding, come out. These people were the ones who were ordered by Yi Qianxian to monitor Luo Qingtong. The man had left, but these people were still loyal to Luo Qingtong's residence. Now, they were all caught by Luo Qingtong. Swish, swish, swish. A group of people walked out from their hiding places hesitantly. Luo Qingtong looked at them with a cold smile and walked over. You guys are pretty good. Luo Qingtong looked at them, the smile on her lips cold and evil. I deliberately didn't catch you guys and let you complete your task properly. You just watched as my residents suffered? Good. Not bad. You can do it. The group of people who were ordered to monitor Luo Qingtong were in a mess. So, Lord Evil Doctor had discovered them long ago. Those patrol routes that happened to pass by their hiding places every day were not a coincidence at all. But very quickly, when they heard Luo Qingtong's words, they felt bitter again. Lord Evil Doctor, it's not that we don't want to take action. We were spying on you from the shadows. If we take action, won't we expose ourselves? Everyone wanted to cry, but had no tears. Under Luo Qingtong's stare, they cowered and didn't dare to make a sound. They didn't know why they were afraid, but he still felt that Lord Evil Doctor's aura was very scary. Luo Qingtong also knew that their duties couldn't be exposed at will. She had no intention of pursuing this matter. She had only pulled these people out for one thing. Tell me about those people. Although these people didn't make a move, they were ordered to monitor his residence. They must have seen those people make a move. He might even know where the other party is now. After all, he was a professional in this industry. Luo Qingtong was too lazy to wait for the people of the bloody arena to investigate. By the time they found out, it would be too late. Who knew what those people would do if they caught Suyu? As for her people, other than herself, she would chop off their claws if they dared to touch her. I'll give you 3 breaths of time. If you don't tell me, I'll tell your city lord that you exposed your identities to me. You should know what will happen if you do that, right? Luo Qingtong looked at them coldly. Actually, I don't care if you guys are watching me. Isn't it the same no matter who it is? But the premise is that it's good for both of us, right? Luo Qingtong said and patted them on the shoulder. You can monitor me, but you can't ignore this kind of thing. Otherwise, I'll be very unhappy. And I'll be unhappy. Chapter 147. Understood. How could they dare to say they didn't understand? Luo Qingtong's meaning was very clear. In the future, they would be ordered to protect her instead of monitoring her. If anything happened to her residents, she would settle the score with them. The group of people were instantly changed by Luo Qingtong, and they couldn't even say a word. They were mentally exhausted, but they couldn't afford to offend this lady. This was someone that their lord had specially instructed them to pay attention to. They didn't dare to resist. Under Luo Qingtong's threat, the group of people obediently revealed the details of the attackers. People sent by the Chung clan of the Rising Sun country. Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows. So they're from an aristocratic family of a high-class country. No wonder they're so arrogant. She sneered. The cause of the matter was very simple. A disciple of the Chung clan from the high-class country had some conflicts with Su Yu. Now that the Chung clan was in trouble, he heard that Su Yu was sold as a slave, so he wanted to buy her back and torture her. It was said that Luo Qingtong didn't want to give up after buying her, but they didn't expect that Luo Qingtong gave Su Yu so much authority. The group of people arrogantly came to ask for her, but Su Yu ordered people to beat them out. That night, they directly covered their faces and came to kidnap her. At this time, they had already left the Blackfield city and were probably preparing to return. Luo Qingtong sneered in her heart. It seems that my reputation as an evil doctor isn't big enough. How dare any Tom, Dick, and Harry find trouble with me? The bloody light in her eyes was cold. The steward of the bloody arena, who had yet to leave, trembled when he heard that. He hurriedly wiped the cold sweat off his forehead and said, "Lord Evil Doctor, don't worry. There won't be a next time. We, the bloody arena, will immediately send a warning to the Chung clan through the Blackfield city of the Rising Sun country. They are not allowed to do anything against Lord Evil Doctor subordinates. Otherwise, they will be punished by the bloody arena. That had better be the case." Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes and looked at them. Then he waved his hand and said, "All right, you can all return to your positions. Remember, there will be no next time." They had already left the Blackfield subcity. It was impossible to rely on the people from the Blackfield. Luo Qingtong narrowed her empty black eyes and sneered. Did they think that they could rest easy after leaving the Blackfield subcity? "You guys stay in the mansion and clean it up. I'll be back soon." Luo Qingtong looked at Chu Lingfeng and said after the surveillance team and the people of the bloody arena left. Since Su Yu wasn't here, Luo Qingtong naturally handed over the matters of the mansion to the blockhead. Chu Lingfeng was a little silly, but there was one good thing about him. That was to only listen to Luo Qingtong's orders. What a one-track mind. Luo Qingtong was relieved to leave the matter to him. "When I'm not in the mansion, I won't see anyone. If anyone dares to trespass, kill without mercy," Chu Lingfeng said with a murderous look. The blockhead spent all his time in the bloody arena. He didn't learn anything else, but he learned how to kill decisively and have a strong, murderous aura. If not for this, Luo Qingtong wouldn't have accepted him. She didn't need an idiot who only knew how to cry by her side. It was good that Chu Lingfeng was like this. Luo Qingtong didn't think there was anything wrong with his foolishness. "Master, you must save Su Yu." After that murderous sentence, Chu Lingfeng returned to his silly character. Chapter 148. This blockhead, although he was stupid, he wasn't stupid. Luo Qingtong glanced at him and smiled. "Who told you that I'm going to save Su Yu?" "Ah, isn't that so?" Chu Lingfeng looked at Luo Qingtong with a stupefied expression. "Master, you can't leave Su Yu alone. He's very good to us. He's also very loyal and devoted to Master." Taking Luo Qingtong's words seriously, Chu Lingfeng became anxious. Such a big blockhead pounced on Luo Qingtong with a swish. "Stop!" Luo Qingtong raised her hand to stop him. "This blockhead, why is he like a big wolf dog, pouncing on me every time she said he would?" Luo Qingtong looked at the clothes she had just changed into, and then looked at his body that was mixed with blood and mud. Her lips suddenly twitched. "Okay, I'll go save him. Hurry and wash your body clean, and apply the medicine while you're at it." She was just teasing this blockhead for fun, but she didn't expect him to take it seriously. At this time, if she didn't go out to save Su Yu, could it be that she went out to look at the scenery? "Honestly, look after the house and wait for me to come back," Luo Qingtong said, and a bloodthirsty smile appeared on her lips. She turned to look at the battle slaves standing not far away. Looking at the big and small injuries on their bodies, she suddenly narrowed her eyes. "All of you come here," she ordered them. The group of people all stood in front of Luo Qingtong. The girl looked at them and suddenly released her mental strength. Pa pa pa. Under countless crisp sounds, These stupefied battle slaves' bodies shook fiercely, and they looked at Luo Qingtong with regret. Master, they looked at Luo Qingtong with shock, just like Su Yu when his slave imprint was shattered. Their hearts were also full of disbelief. Did the master destroy the slave imprint in their minds? Wasn't she afraid that they would betray her? Especially those martial marquee experts. Their gazes towards Luo Qingtong were even more shocked. Don't look at me like that. Luo Qingtong looked at them indifferently. Although the slave imprint can guarantee your loyalty, it prevents you from fully displaying your strength. I don't want something like this to happen again. Also, since I dared to remove the slave imprint in your body, I'm confident that I won't suffer any backlash from you. If you don't believe me, you can give it a try. Luo Qingtong originally planned to remove the slave imprint on these battle slaves soon. She didn't want to leave any hidden dangers around her. In particular, the slave imprints not only restricted the loyalty of these people, but also restricted their strength, making them unable to fully display their strength. Otherwise, with so many slaves in Luo Qingtong's residence, even if the Cheng clan of the Rising Sun country came, they shouldn't have been beaten so badly. And Su Yu was taken away. This was simply a great humiliation. Luo Qingtong directly shattered the slave imprint in their bodies. If these people knew their place, there would naturally be benefits for them in the future. If they didn't know their place, did they really think that her slave imprint could be removed so easily? Luo Qingtong didn't mind if someone tried to test the law and let the others see the outcome. We obey master's orders. The group of battle slaves was silent for a moment. Then they all kneeled on the ground and sincerely acknowledged their allegiance. Luo Qingtong's methods were unfathomable. It was their fortune to be able to follow such a master. Furthermore, the other party gave them a new life. Very good. Marshal Marquis, follow me. The rest stay here. Luo Qingtong said and leaped away. Chapter 149. Thousands of meters away from the Blackfield subcity, a rather luxurious flying boat was docked at the foot of a mountain. The door of the flying boat opened, and a group of people walked out. Elder Lu, I didn't expect to meet you here. It's really a great fortune. A man who looked like a steward said respectfully to a middle-aged man who was dressed in an elder's attire and had a shocking aura. With you around, we don't have to worry about our journey. Yes, Elder Lu nodded. I just came back from the capital of Eastern Fence Nation. I had some matters to attend to, but I returned empty-handed. He sighed at this point, and a trace of unwillingness faintly appeared on his face. When the steward heard this, he exchanged glances with the guard beside him. They both knew what the steward was talking about. The news of the Celestial Sect's ruins appearing near the capital of the Eastern Fence Nation had already spread throughout the entire Great Qin sacred dynasty. Countless powerful cultivators had traveled day and night to go there, but in the end, all of them returned empty-handed. It seemed that this Elder Lu was the same. However, this was also their fortune. With this martial king Elder Lu, they didn't have to worry about not being able to return safely. You're here to do something for young Master Lingyan? Elder Lu asked as his gaze swept across the huge iron cage they were carrying. That's right. The steward smiled. It's just a small matter. An enemy of young Master Ling Yun's younger brother was sold as a slave. Young Master's younger brother asked us to buy him back to vent our anger. Isn't he locked in this iron cage? We're just waiting to bring him back to vent our anger for young Master's younger brother. This flying boat was also given to us by young Master to do something for him. Let's go and return quickly. The steward laughed. He didn't say that the person was snatched from Luo Qingtong. Just as Luo Qingtong thought, this steward was used to flaunting his power in the Cheng family of a high-class nation. He didn't think that there was anything to be afraid of from an evil doctor in a small Blackfield subcity of Eastern Fence Nation. What kind of powerful person could come from such a remote and desolate place? The steward didn't know Luo Qingtong's status in the Blackfield. Otherwise, he wouldn't have dared to be so presumptuous. Even the bloody arena had to treat him as a guest of honor. Was he someone they could offend? Unfortunately, he didn't know anything. Moreover, she relied on the fact that she was working for young Master Ling Yun and the fact that the other party was a genius of the Great Chu Sacred Academy. So she didn't put Luo Qingtong, this evil doctor, in her eyes. So much so that it was too late for regrets. Because of this, the Chung clan was in big trouble. Oh, Elder Lu nodded when he heard that and did not say anything else. Although he didn't receive any news about the immortal sect's ruins after returning from the Eastern Fence Nation's 9 Shamans Mountain, he still received a lot of benefits. He wanted to study it properly, so he didn't pay much attention to what the steward wanted him to do. He asked casually and then ignored him. A group of people started a bonfire in the open space next to them and threw Su Yu's cage to the side. Bang! After a violent vibration, the cage tilted, revealing Su Yu, who was imprisoned inside. Her limbs were chained and tied to the 4 corners of the cage. Her beautiful face, which didn't lose to any man, was pale from the loss of blood. Only her eyes, which were as wild as a wolf, stared at the steward and the Chung clan guards. What are you looking at? If you keep looking, I'll dig out your eyes. Chapter 150. A lowly prisoner. How dare you be so impudent? Oomph. The steward sneered as he looked at the huge iron cage that was tumbling around. Su Yu, 3rd young master Su. Do you still think you're the Su family's young master, Ruyu? Oomph. The Su family has long been exterminated. You, young master Ruyu, have also become a slave in someone else's hands. How is it? Did you enjoy the suffering on the flying ship just now? If you don't behave and put away your horrifying gaze, I'll dig your eyes out. Let's see if you still dare to look at me like that. So you didn't say anything. That pair of unruly and cold eyes never left the steward. You, seeing that Su Yu wasn't moved by force or persuasion, the steward was extremely enraged. He couldn't really dig Su Yu's eyes out. One had to know that young Master Ling Yun's younger brother had indicated that he wanted to bring Su Yu back for him to torture. Under such circumstances, how could he overstep his authority? However, he was unwilling to be stared at by Su Yu like this. Suddenly, his eyes turned as if he thought of something. He sneered and said to Su Yu maliciously, "Young Master Su Yu, do you know how your Su family was exterminated? TSK, TSK, TSK. Losing the important border city caused the army to suffer a crushing defeat. The Su family's commander-in-chief was killed, and the entire family was convicted. Aren't you curious? Why is it that your Su family has been in charge of the army for generations and has never made any mistakes before? Why did you make such a huge mistake in such an important battle?" When Su Yu heard this, she was shocked. Her expression, which had not changed, suddenly changed. "It's you?" she said hoarsely. That hoarse voice still couldn't hide the coldness in it. However, at this moment, this coldness was completely tainted with fiery anger and hatred. "It's you. It's the Chung family. You destroyed my Su family." She struggled to get up, and the iron chains on her limbs made crisp, clanging sounds. "Huh, that's right. It must be very painful, right? Actually, it's not just the Chung family, but also the imperial family. Who asked your Su family to be so meritorious to the emperor? You even went against our Chung family. Perfect. Our eldest young master has entered the Great Chu Sacred Academy. Your Su family can only become an abandoned child. Who told your brilliant elder brother to die so early? Without such a powerful person, your Su family can only be destroyed." The steward looked at Su Yu's pained expression and laughed out loud. Although he couldn't torture Su Yu, he could still torture him in this way. Humph! What's Su family's young master? She was still a slave and a prisoner. In the past, when the Su family was flourishing, he didn't even have the qualifications to look up to a young master like Su Yu. But now, he could only be locked in a cage and humiliated. Looking at Su Yu's eyes that looked like she wanted to kill him, but couldn't do anything, the steward was very pleased. "This TSK you still don't know, right? When your Su family was destroyed, I was also present." Sigh. The screams that filled the courtyard were heart-wrenching. "Oh, right. The taste of your Sioux family's miss is quite good. Huh, the steward said with a smug look on his face. I'll kill you. I'll kill all of you. So you went crazy. Anyone who knew the cruel truth would not be able to bear it. So you had always thought that the loss of that war was a mistake of the Sioux family. Therefore, when facing the imperial family's punishment, the Sioux family didn't have any resistance. Her father even committed suicide with guilt. The entire Sioux family army fell apart. All the Sioux family's generals were convicted. She was even captured by the enemy and sold as a slave. But now, she found out that this was a trap, a conspiracy concocted by the imperial family and the Chung family to deal with the Sioux family. Chapter 151. I'm going to kill all of you. I'm going to kill all of you. Suyu struggled frantically. Her cultivation was suppressed, and she could not use any of her strength. Her hand scratched the iron chain, and blood instantly flowed out. Looking at Suyu's painful appearance, the steward laughed arrogantly. Scream all you want. When you reach the Chung family, there will be more painful things for you. At this moment, a cold voice sounded. Is that so? Unfortunately, you won't have the chance to bring her back. The moment the voice sounded, a ghostly figure appeared in front of them from afar. Who are you? Hearing the voice, the steward of the Chung family instantly shouted. He took a step back and stared vigilantly at the direction where the figure appeared. His expression was extremely alert. From the other party's words, it seemed that he was here for Suyu. Behind him, a group of guards also stood up and quickly surrounded him. Elder Liu, who was resting with his eyes closed, also opened his eyes. You don't have the right to know who I am. Luo Qingtong's figure slowly appeared beside the iron cage. Looking at Suyu, who was locked in the cage like a dog, Luo Qingtong's expression suddenly turned cold. You only need to know that I'm the one who wants her life. How dare they treat the people around her like this? These people from the Chung family were courting death. Master, seeing Luo Qingtong appear, Suyu's cold and desperate heart was filled with warmth. She did not expect Luo Qingtong to specially come to save her. When she was taken away from the mansion by the Chung clan, she had already given up all hope. When she knew the truth about the Su family's destruction, she was even more desperate. The Chung family was a first-class family in the Rising Sun country. If the Su family was still around, they could still fight against them. But now, Su Yu's eyes were filled with extreme pain. Master, don't worry about me. Go quickly. There are martial king experts here. Before Su Yu could finish his words, the steward of the Chung family had already looked at Luo Qingtong maliciously. It turned out that the master and the slave had deep feelings for each other. Are you the evil doctor who bought Su Yu's jade? They actually chased him all the way here. Just as well, then I'll capture them both. Be our Chung clan slave. Although the manager didn't think that Luo Qingtong had any ability, he still felt that she was a swindler. It was just a stroke of luck that made him famous in the Blackfield sub-city of the Eastern Fence Country. However, if he could make Suyu suffer, he was still very willing to do it. This would definitely make the young master's younger brother very happy. At that time, there would be many benefits for him. Sure enough, after hearing his words, Suyu bit her lip hard and hurriedly said to Luo Qingtong, Mistress, hurry and leave. Don't worry about me. This is a grudge between our Su family and the Chung family. It has nothing to do with you. It was enough for Mistress to give her freedom and a new life. She couldn't implicate Mistress anymore. Want to leave? It's too late. The manager sneered and raised his hand. Capture her. Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes at the manager. When the guards rushed up, she also raised her hand and made a gesture. Surround them all. Don't let anyone go. She was going to start a massacre today. Swish, swish, swish. Chapter 152. You dare to show off in front of our Chung clan with just a few martial marquis? The steward looked at the martial marquis experts who appeared behind Luo Qingtong. He felt an indescribable sense of mockery in his heart and laughed loudly. You are indeed a country bumpkin from the Eastern Fence country. You think you could do anything to us with just a few martial marquee experts? Let me tell you, in our rising sun country, martial marquee experts are just elite guards. Your martial marquee slaves were beaten to a pulp by us. If not for the fact that we are in the Blackfields territory, do you think they can escape unscathed? I didn't expect you to bring them to encircle and annihilate us. Ha ha! The steward laughed wantonly. Young Master Suyu, he mocked. This is your master? She doesn't seem to be very smart. You are not allowed to insult my master. Suyu's eyes were bloodshot as she struggled desperately against the chains on the iron cage. If not for her, her master would not have been humiliated. Master, leave quickly. Leave? Luo Qingtong did not look at her. She only looked at the laughing steward. You talk too much nonsense. She lowered her eyes, and in the next second, her figure suddenly flew up. Oomph! You are courting death. Seeing Luo Qingtong rushing towards him, the steward's expression suddenly became serious. The aura on his body suddenly exploded. It was the aura of a martial marquis. Furthermore, it was the strength of a 6th-stage martial marquis. He went up to Luo Qingtong. I originally want to make fun of you. Since you are courting death, I will fulfill your wish. He sneered. Leave this evil doctor to me. The rest of you, surround and kill those martial marquis slaves, he said in a deep voice. However, before he could finish speaking, Luo Qingtong, who should have been hundreds of meters away, suddenly appeared in front of him. The death blade in her hand fiercely slashed. In an instant, blood splattered. The steward's throat was instantly cut open. I told you, you talk too much nonsense. In front of Luo Qingtong's eye technique, the manager's every move was under her observation. That steward thought that she had appeared in front of him in an instant. But in reality, Luo Qingtong had already seen through his next move through her eye technique and had deliberately waited for him at that place. It was equivalent to the steward bumping into Luo Qingtong's death blade. You! The steward clutched his throat that had been cut open and looked at Luo Qingtong with shock in his eyes. With a thump, he fell backwards. An instant kill. From start to finish, Luo Qingtong and this steward opponent had not lasted more than 10 breaths of time. Everyone was stunned. The guards who were rushing towards the battle slaves were instantly dumbfounded. The manager died just like that. Although his strength wasn't considered high among them, it wasn't low either. An expert of the 6th level of martial marquis was actually slashed in the throat by a sword. They were shocked in their hearts. Although everyone could see that Luo Qingtong was able to do this because it was unexpected, but even if it was unexpected, you still needed to have the corresponding strength. The opponent's aura was clearly not at the great martial general realm. For a great martial general to kill a martial marquis was already considered a genius that appeared once in 100 years. Luo Qingtong had directly jumped 2 realms to kill the enemy, and it was a fatal blow. Chapter 153. Swish. While they were still in a daze, Luo Qingtong's figure flashed once again. Her strength had risen to the 9th stage of the martial general realm, and she was able to display her full strength. It could be said that Luo Qingtong's movements completely represented the peak of strength at this stage. Even if it was a genius expert with the same cultivation level, in front of Luo Qingtong, they would not be able to control their strength as accurately as her. They would not be able to display their strength as much as her. If it was said that a 9th stage martial general genius could display 200% of their strength, then Luo Qingtong's strength had no upper limit. At this stage, where the strongest strength that could be displayed was where Luo Qingtong's strength was at. The reason why there was such an effect was because under Luo Qingtong's eye technique, she was able to grasp the strength of her body like the back of her hand. When a person was able to completely understand their own strength, they would be able to use every bit of strength in their body at will. The difference between the different stages would not be that big. Using a simple example, A high school student could use a high school formula to solve a problem. A middle school student, as long as his brain was developed enough, could also use a middle school formula to solve the problem. Under this kind of situation, was there any difference between the two? It was even possible that the middle school student's final solution would be even more perfect. Who do you think is more powerful? Under the Martial King realm, as long as the cultivator did not reach the Sciention Unity stage, they would not be able to resonate with the power of heaven and earth. In front of Luo Qingtong, there would be no difference between them and a sieve. There would be flaws everywhere. As long as she could find those flaws, and when the opponent tried to cover them up in time, she would quickly break them. Then, even if it was a martial lord expert, in front of her, they would not be able to withstand a single blow. Luo Qingtong's biggest problem was that her strength was not enough to break through the opponent's defense. And with the strength of a 9th-stage martial general, coupled with the cutting ability of the Death Blade, it was just enough to break through the defense of a martial lord. She could kill these people like chopping melons and vegetables. Only experts at the peak of the martial marquis realm could barely withstand her attack, but they could only barely withstand it. Luo Qingtong stared coldly at the guard commander, who was at the peak of martial lord realm. This person was the strongest among the steward's guards. With the strength of a peak martial marquis, he withstood every single one of her attacks. Every time, the Deathblade was so close to breaking through the opponent's defense and taking his life. But she was so close that Luo Qingtong could not break through his defense. There's nothing you can do to me. The guard commander, who was at the peak of the martial lord realm, started to panic. Luo Qingtong's speed was too fast. Almost in an instant, the guard around him all fell down. The steward's words were a complete joke. What about surrounding and killing the other party's martial lord realm slaves? They hadn't even touched the other party's slaves yet. Almost all of them were killed by this evil doctor alone. This guard commander finally understood why Luo Qingtong dared to chase after them with a few martial lord realm slaves. It turned out that the other party was completely confident. Fortunately, the other party seemed to be unable to do anything to him. This caused the guard commander's heart to rise with infinite hope. He laughed loudly and pounced towards Luo Qingtong. As for those martial lord realm slaves, he did not even put them in his eyes. These people were under the control of the slave imprint and could not fully display their strength. He could kill them all with one hand. Chapter 154. Swish! Luo Qingtong's body rose again. The death blade in her hand suddenly changed its form, turning into a milky white life blade state. She slashed down. Under the life blade, the defense of the peak martial lord, which was originally unbreakable, was instantly absorbed by the life blade. At the same time, the defensive power of the peak martial lord also stagnated. Now is the time. Luo Qingtong's eyes flashed. Under the dark red 3D vision, the flaws in the body of the expert at the peak of the martial lord realm were instantly revealed. This time, the flaw was a flaw that could be broken. Boom! The life and death sword in Luo Qingtong's hand instantly changed its form again. Under the absorption state of the life blade, the strength of the peak martial lord was slightly weakened, but Luo Qingtong's strength slightly increased. Under this situation, Luo Qingtong's death blade instantly pierced through the opponent's defense and went straight for his heart. Bang! The tip of the sword penetrated his chest and came out from the back. Luo Qingtong's lips revealed a smile like a bloodthirsty demon flower, and she turned the long sword in her hand. With a boom, the expert at the peak of the martial lord realm did not even have time to react before his heart was minced into pieces. Bang! Luo Qingtong lifted her foot and kicked his body to the side. The few martial lord realm slaves at the side were dumbfounded, especially the peak martial lord slave expert. Originally, when he saw that Luo Qingtong could not break the defense of the peak martial lord guard, he wanted to come up and help. But before he could rush up, Luo Qingtong had already killed the guard commander who was at the peak of martial lord realm with one strike. Master is actually so powerful. Looking at the terrifying death of the guard commander, the peak martial lord battle slave expert's expression froze for a while. He shrunk his neck and inexplicably felt a burst of cold air. He secretly rejoiced that when the slave mark was removed, he did not have the thought of defecting. Otherwise, his fate would not be much better than the guard commander's. The master of the demonic doctor was too powerful. Obviously, the aura emitted from her body was not at the great martial general realm. It was really too terrifying. If Luo Qingtong was also a martial marquis expert, this peak martial marquis battle slave expert would not be so afraid. But Luo Qingtong, she was not even at the great martial general realm. Where could he find such a terrifying martial general realm expert? Is she still human? Just as the group of martial marquis realm battle slaves were shocked by the terrifying degree of their master, on the other side, Elder Lu, who had watched the entire process of the Chung family being destroyed, was ecstatic. Good sword. He looked greedily at the life and death sword in Luo Qingtong's hand. He did not know Luo Qingtong's hidden card, so he thought that Luo Qingtong's great power was the blessing of the life and death sword. It could allow a martial general realm expert to directly kill an enemy 2 realms higher. What kind of divine weapon was this sword? If he could get it, wouldn't his strength increase greatly? At that time, not to mention the Chung family, he could even do whatever he wanted in the big empires. Wouldn't those super families of the sacred dynasty treat him as a distinguished guest? Chapter 155. Fancy the sword in my hand? Old dog, I'm afraid you won't have the life to take it. Luo Qingtong raised her hand to shake off the blood on her sword. She tilted her sword slightly and pointed it at the ground. She raised her hand and pointed the tip of the sword at Elder Lu. Come and take it if you can. That disdainful attitude and provocation instantly made the veins on Elder Lu's forehead bulge. He was furious. What did you say? You're courting death. As he spoke, he suddenly rushed towards Luo Qingtong. I'm kind enough to give you a way out, but you don't want it. Then go to hell. Elder Lu's voice was filled with rage. His claws were like an eagle's hook as they viciously clawed at Luo Qingtong. At the same time, his body erupted with a power that only a martial king expert could possess. The surrounding spiritual chi of heaven and earth was stirred up by the eruption of his aura. Martial king realm, Khanate unity. The power in one's body could be manipulated at will, and it could also manipulate the surrounding spiritual chi of heaven and earth to create momentum. At the beginning, Elder Lu's claw only contained 50% of his strength. But after the momentum was created, the attack power instantly increased to 100%. This was the unique advantage of a martial king expert. When they reached the martial king realm, they could release the energy from their body and add another layer of attack power on top of their own attacks. Bam! Following Elder Lu's claw, there seemed to be a loud sound in the air. The attack power of this claw was actually able to tear the air apart and create a sonic boom. Master, Suya had just been released from the iron cage by the other slave experts. When he raised his head and saw this scene, he instantly rushed towards Luo Qingtong without hesitation. The expressions of the other martial marquis experts also changed. They didn't expect that there would be a martial king expert in the team sent by the Chung family. This was an expert who could establish a country. Even in a superior country like the Sunrise Country, he was a figure that was worshipped. He was an absolute expert. Why was there such an expert in the team that came to capture Suyu? Only someone at the level of a clan head or above would be able to order them around, even if his opponent was only a cultivator who had just reached the martial emperor realm. However, Suyu was the only one who knew that Elder Lu had encountered the team sent by the Chung clan to capture him. It was all his fault. If it wasn't for him, Master wouldn't have met the other party and wouldn't have been targeted. Master, leave quickly. Let's stop him. Hurry back to Black Field. Suyu rushed in front of Luo Qingtong and raised her hand to block the attack. When the other marquis level battle slaves heard this, they quickly reacted. They were powerless against a martial king realm expert. They might as well risk their lives to protect their master and escape. With master's status and identity in Blackfield City, he would definitely be able to avenge them. Master, leave quickly. They also rushed up and instantly formed a human wall in front of Luo Qingtong. Huh, leave? Don't even think about leaving. A ray of light suddenly burst out from Elder Lu's hand and fiercely blasted towards Luo Qingtong and the others. External release of energy. External attack. Looking at the horrifying attack coming towards them, Su Yu and the others didn't even think about rushing forward. At this moment, a gentle force suddenly pushed them away. At this moment, a brilliant black light suddenly shot out from behind them. Chapter 156. There was a loud explosion. The black light that flew out from behind them collided with Elder Lu's blast of energy. Under this heavy explosion, the surrounding air instantly exploded. A huge gust of wind exploded. Waves of aftershocks blasted in all directions. Su Yu and those martial marquee battle slaves were blown away by the violent force. Their bodies swayed left and right, and they almost fell to the ground. Master! Su Yu turned around, wanting to see who saved them. He suddenly turned around and saw Luo Qingtong standing behind them with the death blade. There was no one else except her. That attack just now was sent out by Master. Su Yu and the other battle slaves were dumbfounded as they watched the scene unfold. That was an off-body attack that only martial kings could launch. How did Master do it? Their gazes involuntarily focused on the death blade in Luo Qingtong's hand. This sword is so powerful. Indeed, that attack just now was launched by Luo Qingtong with the death blade. When Luo Qingtong obtained the life and death sword, she was already able to use the death blade to launch a sword attack that only martial kings could launch. But at that time, the power in her body was not enough. She could barely launch one attack. But now it was not like this. Old dog, you want to steal my sword with your little strength? You're boasting too shamelessly. Seeing that Su Yu and the others were almost killed, Luo Qingtong's eyes were cold, and she directly waved her hand. Swish! The biting cold black light penetrated the death blade like the light of a death scythe and heavily chopped at Elder Lu in front of her. The latter was now looking at the life and death duality sword like a hungry wolf. Ha ha! Good, good, good. Good sword. A peerless sword. Elder Lu's heart was filled with indescribable ecstasy. The surprise that this sword gave him was simply too great. Previously, it was enough to make Luo Qingtong kill a martial marquee expert. Who would have thought that it would be able to make a martial general realm expert directly release a sword chi attack to fight against him? A martial king realm expert. Good. This is great. Such a peerless treasure. She was destined to be his. Huh. Originally, I wanted to spare your lives to torture you. Now I've changed my mind. All of you must die. Someone who had seen this sword. All of you must die. Such a peerless sword. I must hide it well. I can't let anyone know. I was right to let the Chung family's people be killed by this evil doctor. Ha! He laughed loudly. With a boom, the aura around him exploded. A fiery red, long sword instantly appeared in his hand. I'll let you see what the true strength of a martial king is. That's not something that can be compared to the sword chi that you can release with a sword. As he spoke, he raised his hand and waved it. A sword light several meters long shot out from the long sword and rushed towards Luo Qingtong. Master! Be careful. So you and the others felt their hearts tighten as they watched. Although their master could release a sword light that only a martial king could have, she was not a real martial king. Would Mistress be able to block this move? Just as their hearts tightened, the two sword lights collided in mid-air. Boom! Luo Qingtong's sword light was suddenly broken. Seeing that Elder Lu's attack was about to penetrate, Su Yu and the others could not help but scream. Chapter 157. With a bang, Elder Lu's attack also shattered in midair. How is this possible? Elder Lu, who was about to laugh maniacally, was instantly stunned. How is this possible? His full-strength attack was actually unable to deal with the attack of the evil doctor, who was not even at the great martial general stage. How is this possible? No matter how powerful that black sword was, the opponent had to have the strength to unleash it. A great martial general stage was simply unable to unleash the full power of that long sword. Elder Lu was confident that he could behead the opponent under his sword light. He did not expect that he would be able to break through the opponent's attack. But his own sword light attack was also neutralized. Elder Lu's heart was filled with disbelief. However, only Luo Qingtong knew how she did it. No matter how strong the attack was, it had a weak point. The opponent's attack was strong, but she had already seen through the weakest point of his sword light through her eye technique. When she waved her sword, she had already rushed towards that trajectory and destroyed that weak point, neutralizing the opponent's attack. No, I don't believe it. Elder Lu's face was filled with rage. He raised his sword and rushed forward. The fiery red sword light swallowed and spat out. He did not believe it. His opponent was able to completely block his attack with a single sword. If one attack was not enough, then two. He did not believe that the opponent could block all of them. Rumble. The two figures quickly clashed with each other. Su Yu and the rest, who had been thrown to the ground by the aftermath of the terrifying attacks, were extremely shocked. If it was said that Luo Qingtong blocked Elder Lu's attack the first time, they felt that it was a fluke. But this time they were completely shocked. Just as Elder Lu thought, no matter how powerful the sword in Master's hand was, without the corresponding strength, it was impossible to fight against a martial king expert. So when Master killed those martial marquis experts, she did not use her full strength. While Su Yu and the rest were shocked, Elder Lu became more and more alarmed as he fought. Terrifying. Too terrifying. What kind of monster was the opponent? Elder Lu could clearly feel that the sword light emitted by Luo Qingtong through the death blade was not as powerful as his own attack. However, his opponent was able to negate his attacks every single time. He wanted to increase his attack power to almost the same level as hers. Every single one of his attacks seemed to have collided with her sword light. Then, when his opponent's sword light shattered, the power of his attack was also negated. Once or twice could be considered a coincidence. It was the same every time. Could it be that the other party was able to see through his attack? Thinking of this, that Elder Lu was greatly alarmed. At this time, he no longer despised Luo Qingtong. Instead, a trace of coldness emerged from the bottom of his heart. A martial general cultivator, even if he had a divine sword in his hand, would not be able to fight with him like this. And not only did the other party do it, in fact, it was even showing signs of suppressing him. Elder Lu had a feeling that as time passed, the rhythm of his attacks and the circulation of his qi seemed to be becoming more and more clear to his opponent. If this continued, perhaps he would be killed here instead. No way. This can't go on. As Elder Lu thought about it, he gritted his teeth. Boom! He flipped his wrist. In an instant, the long sword in his hand suddenly emitted a blazing and fierce light. Following his wave, it was like a huge fireball rushing towards Luo Qingtong. Chapter 158. King-level cultivation technique, Raging Flame Slash. This was Elder Lu's most powerful killing move after advancing to the Martial King realm. Just like that, he blasted it towards Luo Qingtong. Die? Ha! The air was filled with a biting cold and suffocating smell, faintly suffused with a scorching hot aura. Luo Qingtong's gaze turned cold when she saw the attack rushing towards her. The strength of this attack had already exceeded the extent of her ability to break it. Luo Qingtong's gaze turned cold as she raised her hand to change the death blade into a life blade. At this moment, the power in her body suddenly stagnated, coincidentally exhausted. Luo Qingtong's expression turned cold as the blood-red light in her eyes instantly flashed. Almost instantly, she found the most suitable route to dodge. However, before she could make a move, a figure suddenly rushed over from the side and blocked in front of her. Master! Suyu had been watching the battle between Luo Qingtong and Elder Lu without blinking. Although Luo Qingtong's display of strength was extremely valiant, Elder Lu was still a martial king after all. No one would know the outcome until the very last moment. Therefore, when something happened to Luo Qingtong, no one else had noticed it, but Suyu had immediately noticed it and pounced over without a second thought. I can't let anything happen to Master. Even if I have to sacrifice my life, I can't let anything happen to Master. Holding on to this belief, Suyu rushed over before Luo Qingtong could move and pounced on her. Master! She raised her hand to push Luo Qingtong away. Luo Qingtong's pupils shrank. She never thought that Suyu would pounce over without a care in the world. Anyone could see that Elder Lu's move was a killing move. Suyu had pounced over to block the arrow for her and send herself to death. This fool! Bang! In the instant that Luo Qingtong's body moved, she pulled Suyu's hand and dodged to the side. However, her eye technique only calculated her safest hiding position. It didn't include Suyu. Although her pull had allowed Suyu to avoid the sure kill attack of the raging flame slash, the aftershock of the latter's berserk strength and scorching aura had instantly inflicted heavy injuries on Suyu. Luo Qingtong was instantly enraged when she saw the back of the girl who had thrown herself at her, charred and badly mutilated. Old dog, you're courting death. The bloody light in Luo Qingtong's eyes was like a storm. The blood-red glow within her eyes was strong, and when paired with her empty and black eyes, she looked like a goddess of darkness that had come from the depths of hell. When she saw Elder Lu raising his hand to launch another attack at her, the blood-red light in her eyes turned piercingly cold. She immediately summoned Little Pig. He still didn't know what was going on with the latter. As soon as it raised its head, it saw a piercingly cold and scorching light rushing towards it. Instantly, it cried out in fright and raised its 4 little hooves, wanting to run away. Luo Qingtong raised a hand and pressed it down. Stop him. At least 10 breaths of time. Otherwise, don't even think about leaving the demon subduing pagoda for the rest of your life. Her voice was ice cold. Before Little Pig could react, it was lifted and thrown out. Ah! You can't do this. Why don't you call Lil White out to block me? You're treating me differently. Little Pig cried out as it flew towards the raging flame slash. At the same time, Luo Qingtong abruptly grasped the 1,000-year soul guiding wood's core in her hand. It contained the Yi Qianxian energy that she had previously poured into it. Chapter 159. Little Pig flew toward Elder Lu's attack with a miserable expression. Just when everyone thought it would be split in half by the attack, Little Pig finally shut up after failing to get Luo Qingtong to call it back after shouting for a long time. Forget it, that woman won't fall for it. Damn it. Little Pig stomped on the ground with its 4 little hooves and instantly reversed its position in the air. Then, under everyone's widened eyes, Little Pig abruptly opened its mouth. Boom! A ray of light that was as sharp as a sword shot out from its mouth. With a bang, it collided with the attack that Elder Lu had unleashed. Rumble! The 2 lights collided in an instant. The violent shockwave from the collision caused Little Pig's aura to weaken significantly. This attack had consumed a lot of its energy. In the next second, Little Pig turned into a pink lightning bolt and charged toward Elder Lu. Luo Qingtong said that she wanted Little Pig to block Elder Lu's attack for at least 10 breaths of time. What the hell is this? Elder Lu was stunned for a moment when he saw his attack was blocked by a pink mini pig that appeared out of nowhere. Then, he launched another attack. This time, before the attack could reach him, Little Pig had already dodged and fled. Little Pig's 4 little hooves lightly stomped in the air and turned into pink lightning bolts. It circled around Elder Lu, not giving him a chance to disturb Luo Qingtong's recovery. Based on its understanding of that woman, once she regained her strength, it would be Elder Lu's death in the next second. Damn it, you bastard! I'll trap you until you die. It's all your fault. You made this Grandpa Pig lose a lot of energy. Do you think it's easy for me to recover a little bit of my strength? If it weren't for the fact that I'm sealed, I would have killed you with a single breath. Damn it. Little Pig grumbled in his heart as he led Elder Lu in circles. Rumble. Elder Lu launched one attack after another, but none of them could even touch Little Pig's skin. Occasionally, some of the shockwaves hit Little Pig, but it was as if they couldn't hurt Little Pig at all. From beginning to end, Little Pig didn't slow down at all. What the hell is this thing? Just as Elder Lu was shocked, there was a loud boom. On the other side, Luo Qingtong finally absorbed enough power. She leaped into the air, and the blood-red light in her eyes flickered. Behind the evil Rakshasa mask, her red lips moved slightly. Get out of the way, Little Pig's cold voice. Without any hesitation, he kicked the ground and ran as far as the sky. Damn it, I'm so tired. Why did this woman provoke so many people? She actually provoked a martial king. How is she going to deal with her opponent? At the martial king realm, the chi within the body was perfectly integrated, and there was almost no flaw. Even if there was a martial king, Luo Qingtong, she's a martial general. Luo Qingtong, a peak martial marquis, combined with a life and death yin-yang sword's life and death edge effect, could barely kill him. What should she do? Little Pig was curious, so he didn't forget to turn his head around to take a look. With one look, it instantly widened its beady eyes. How did this woman do it? Little Pig looked at Luo Qingtong in shock. The death blade in the girl's hand was held horizontally. Streaks of fiery red light jumped on it. The scorching and intense light set off the pure black blade. It was like the fire of the underworld from the depths of purgatory, absolutely gorgeous and terrifying. Chapter 160. Isn't this the attack that Elder Lu just used? What's it called again? Raging Flame Slash. While Little Pig was still in shock, Luo Qingtong's cold voice rang out. Swoosh! A fiery red light, with terrifying speed and murderous intent, suddenly broke free from the death blade sword light in Luo Qingtong's hand. That light carried a scorching heat, sweeping up layers of heat waves in the air as it blasted towards Elder Lu, who was already dumbfounded from shock. The power and intensity of this attack were many times stronger than the Raging Flame Slash that Elder Lu used before. If the Raging Flame Slash that Elder Lu used before was only 50 points of proficiency, then Luo Qingtong's proficiency was 100 points. Perfect replication. This was another ability of Luo Qingtong's pupil technique. As long as she had enough strength, she could perfectly replicate any cultivation method or martial skill that she had seen before. This Raging Flame Slash, no matter if it was the technique or the power, had reached the most perfect level of this king-tier cultivation method. It was as if it was directly copied from a cultivation method book. His every move was perfect to the extreme. Little Pig was so shocked that his eyeballs almost fell out of their sockets. Oh my God, what kind of abnormal master did I choose? This woman. Can this woman be any more abnormal? Under Little Pig's shocked gaze, the Raging Flame Slash rapidly slashed toward Elder Lu. The latter quickly regained his senses as the scorching heat approached him. Impossible. This is impossible. How are you able to use my secret technique? This must be a fake. Smokescreen. Yes, it's a smokescreen. Elder Lu's heart was filled with panic and fear. He shouted loudly and hurriedly waved his hand, sending out a Raging Flame Slash at the same time. However, compared to Luo Qingtong's perfect Raging Flame Slash, Elder Lu's Raging Flame Slash was like a child's play. Boom! Luo Qingtong's Raging Flame Slash quickly broke through Elder Lu's Raging Flame Slash and directly cut him in half. Bang bang! With two muffled sounds, the two halves of Elder Lu's body fell heavily onto the ground. His eyes were wide open. He couldn't believe that he had died under his own unique skill. Moreover, he had died so miserably. Boom! After Luo Qingtong's attack split Elder Lu into two halves, it didn't slow down at all. Instead, it created a huge and bottomless crack in the ground. The might of a king-level cultivation technique was truly terrifying. Bam! Little Pig fell to the ground. Looking at the Luo Qingtong's attack, his eyes widened. Oh my god, this woman was too scary, wasn't she? With just a glance, he had learned someone else's unique skill. Moreover, his attack was many times more powerful than Elder Lu's. Oh my god, was he still human? As for the few Martial Marquis realm slaves who had been completely abandoned to the side and hadn't even been able to get anything, they were constantly gasping for breath. Master's really too strong. Looking at how Elder Lu died without a complete corpse, the strong enslaved figures' hearts were pounding like drums. Their reverence for Luo Qingtong was like that of a deity. A martial general was able to kill a martial king. In this world, there was probably no one who could stand shoulder to shoulder with their master. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.